All right, we're live. How's everybody going? Or not going, doing, I can't speak. We're here on the 94th episode of the Game Junction Podcast.
Yeah, I was wondering what that was.
I thought
I'm
I had
just trying to
everything
fix
muted.
it.
Apparently not. But no, yeah, 94, one closer to episode 100. Definitely want to appreciate everybody. Obviously all our channel membership, Patreon, all that fun stuff. Appreciate everyone that's watching from any of our socials, either Twitch, YouTube, the two big that we're actually streaming to. As far as this week's episode, got some new content and stuff like that, and some new reels coming up on the socials as well. I think Brandon just posted one on the Game Boy over on, what is it?
It's on
Instagram?
everything. Yeah,
on everything. Yeah, about the 35th anniversary for the Game Boy. Hard to think it's that old.
I know, right?
Hard to think
crazy.
I'm almost as old as it. Yeah, but no, obviously got a lot going on Facebook, X, Instagram, Threads. Then obviously here on both YouTube and Twitch. Obviously this week we got some neat stuff going on as far as stuff we're talking about. Obviously we have some more news as far as like Bungie layoffs. Avengers Doomsday was announced.
Doomsday, I like that better though.
Yeah, Doomsday. I can't speak all of a sudden. With Robert Downey Jr. obviously coming in, it was during the San Diego Comic-Con that was announced. Some news about Mario and Sonic. We got some new stuff about the new Terminator show coming to Netflix, and a bunch of other fun stuff that we're definitely going to get into. But obviously, we're here with our new guest for this week, the Thunder Stash Gaming. So do you have anything you want to say before we get into it?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Happy to be here. A lot of great stuff to talk about. Took a look at the show notes. You guys should be excited for all the exciting things. There was actually a lot of news this week. A lot of stuff came up in the last 2 days, actually in the last few hours. So really excited to be here. As Kyle mentioned, you can find me on YouTube at Thunder Stash Gaming, and that's spelled STASH. And I do retro and new video game reviews. So new releases, old games. I've been gaming my whole life. I'm almost 40, born in 85. So I've been doing this a long time, playing video games since I was 3 with my older brothers, and pretty much have not put a controller down since. Love video games. Very excited to hang out with you guys today. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, definitely appreciate you coming on for sure. Is there anything you want to say? No, you haven't got to say anything yet, Brandon.
No, we just got a lot going on this week with news. Obviously, there's like he was saying, there's stuff that's coming out hours before we talked about before the show. It seems that right before the podcast, during the podcast, and right after all the news floods in. So
always,
yeah. So that's what's going on this week. I guess we'll just go ahead and kind of dive into it and get started with we got Star Wars Outlaw. So the director said that something about bad faith discourse. I know, Mark, you know a little bit more about like what's been going on with this than I do, because I know you've been following it a good bit. What do you know what's going on here?
I mean, obviously I know a little bit. It obviously digs into the whole culture war stuff that's going on, especially in games between fans and studios and media and stuff like that. But from what I understood, it was explicitly on the main character. I believe it's Kay. The way she, the character design, the way she's dressed and stuff like that. People kind of criticizing the whole. I don't want to say boyish. I was trying to remember the word that I definitely lost. Essentially, the androgynous look is what I was thinking of. Obviously. Of her compared to some other games and stuff like that, and it's been an ongoing. I know it's been an ongoing criticism from some people saying, as far as like Western games, saying some of the female characters look too androgynous or too boyish. They look more masculine. They do feminine. Be probably a good way to address it. And I think he's just coming out and saying that he's just gonna ignore it, not even address the criticisms outright.
What does bad faith people mean exactly? Just negative people or something like that, or is that like what he's trying to say here?
I think you deal with it. I think he's saying that he's not willing to have a discussion from when he says bad faith, or at the very least how it's perceived as people that are not having a conversation or a discussion in good faith. They're coming at it from, they're intentionally trying to attack you.
Oh, okay.
There's no
Gotcha.
substance or perceived legitimate substance from what they're criticizing you for. Probably the best way to describe that.
So basically, it's just like more political, culture war stuff. So we've known about some of that. I thought it was kind of interesting and came out and said something, but I guess when I was looking, there's quite a few people that were putting out like negative tweets. So that's what he's addressing there, it seems.
Yeah, more.
Yeah, I'm not, to be honest with you, just like we were talking about with the MCU, Star Wars has lost me completely, and I hate it because I love the franchise itself.
Yeah.
But I don't love anything that's been done with it outside of the animated stuff from Disney and Rogue One. I like Rogue One, but
yeah, I think everyone can agree that Rogue One was great. We all enjoyed it. And as you were saying, man, I hear the same things too. I will say, kind of share the same thoughts, is that, lots changed in the Star Wars universe, sadly. I was there for episode 7 for the marathon. So it was seven movies straight. They did one theater and all of Arizona did it. And then when episode 9 came out, they did a marathon again with all of the movies. It was like a 22-hour marathon. Girlfriend and I went. We had a great time. But, after all the hype of seeing the final movie and everything kind of sinks in, and you just look at where we're at today and the shows that have been coming out, it's not looking good. It's really not. And I'm sure you guys know or have discussed it on your podcast, all the backlash, without getting into, of course, too many details here. But, they're almost going down a dark path you may not want to go down. And they're already, I feel like they're already 3/4 of the way down that path. Like, are they going to backpedal? Gotta wonder.
It's kind of hard. Obviously, everyone criticizes Disney, and then the face of Star Wars with Disney, it's been Kathleen Kennedy, so she's taken a lot of the criticisms. But I mean, I think a lot of people, they like the franchise. It's just, some of the writing and some of the shows and movies can be criticized. As far as the movies, to me specifically, it was with the sequel, 3 movies. Other than that, 7 was okay. I didn't completely hate the 8th movie. I wasn't a fan of, kind of how the second half of it, or the hyper jump scene.
Yeah.
Where they jump, destroys all the ship. Because I'm not an expert, but I know it definitely contradicted some up until that point established lore as far as like how the hyperspace is kind of supposed to work. Obviously, it's space magic, so it's obviously not reality. But really, what lost to me was the 9th movie, the whole Skywalker saga, the conclusion to it. I just thought the movie had no cohesive story, nothing from the other movies that kind of led up to it. So I think it started there, where they clearly wanted to do, hey, let's do the standard 3 movies, another trilogy. But there was clearly no, format for an overarching story they were kind of supposed to follow. At least one that made sense to me when I watched it. I don't know if either you two kind of felt the same.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think there was a cohesive vision, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously there's more than one director. And I think it would have been better. Just one example, if you had one director that had the same vision with the same story that wants to be told. Because with episode 8 and then episode 9, it's like episode 9 was trying to almost fix things in episode 8. And, it's like it's already been done. And then you spent so much of the movie trying to rewrite things in episode 9. And obviously the handling of Luke's character, even Mark Hamill wasn't happy about it.
Yep.
I didn't expect that. And it's okay I think, to watch a movie and see something you don't expect. And that's a great thing about the movies, right? But I also don't think that many fans expected to see Luke like that either. So it was It was tough. It's tough to see the direction it's going in. On a positive note, I do like the Mandalorian. That's been enjoyable.
I liked season 1. I'm a
Yeah,
little.
I hear that a lot too.
I was kind of in that same boat. It kind of just feels like it went a whole different direction.
But
As
wasn't
far as
there a
that, I
different
don't-
director for season 2? Even like wasn't it somebody else? Or was it individual directors for episodes? I don't remember. I didn't get that deep into it, but
It
when-
was individual directors for each episode.
okay, that makes more sense. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what really lost me. I can't really tell you right now. I watched the whole thing and it's like it's fine. Like I didn't hate it, but I just thought it was meh. You know.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
and I gotta wonder. Obviously, with the game we're talking about here, Star Wars Outlaws, if and how much influence Disney has on some of that game's direction because of it obviously being their IP. Ubisoft has some stuff in common with Disney for sure when it comes to
Yeah.
their handling. So
Yeah.
maybe they're on the same page. As far as the character though, I know what you guys are talking about. I've been following the discourse on Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, and me personally, I don't care how the character looks. I understand what people are saying, and I can see what they're saying. I can see their point. But is it going to affect gameplay?
Yeah.
The answer is obviously no, it's not. But I understand what you're saying. I don't need the character to be attractive.
Exactly.
I do see that. I see that she definitely looks a little masculine, and you know what? That's what they're trying to push in a lot of different areas of society. And again, do I agree with it? I don't, but it doesn't. I'm not gonna let it bother me.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not gonna let it change the way I live, change the way I enjoy good video games. Right. So if the game's great, it's gonna get played regardless of if she's attractive.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's where I'm at. I don't play a game. I was talking with Lucas about this, Mark. I have never even paid attention to what a woman really looks like in a game unless it's absurd. So like there's a few games that are kind of like some anime out there where, you can't not notice it type of thing.
That's the whole discourse around Stellar Blade.
Well,
Yeah, I was thinking
even
of that too.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not something I've ever paid attention to, and I just don't care. I don't care. I don't have time. I don't have time to care about stuff like that. It's stupid.
Right, exactly. And you know what? For what everyone said about Stellar Blade and about the character's attractiveness, right? It's like, yeah, I agree with you. The character is created that way. So what? Bottom line, is it a good game? And you guys, I'm sure, saw the funniest part about that, because that studio got all this backlash, and then I think maybe it was the game's director was like, "That's my wife." Did you guys see that?
Oh yeah,
We-
who did design the character and a lot of
The Korean model,
Oh,
right?
It showed her doing the mocap.
Yeah.
It's like, that's his wife.
Oh, I
That's
didn't see
literally-
that part.
She looks exactly like the character, and he's getting criticized for putting this super pretty woman in the game,
Unrealistic.
to make the younger male demographic buy it. And it's like, no, dude, this is literally my wife. It's like, you guys are so far out of bounds on this one. I was happy to
Oh
hear
my
that.
god.
No, was it his wife that was the? Because I thought they used
I thought it was a
separate model for the character design, but his
Yeah.
wife was one of the lead designers in the game itself, or something like that, of how the actual character ended up looking. I
You
thought there
showed
was
me a
something different, but
Korean
I might
model
be
that
wrong.
she looked like, right? Wasn't it Korean model that you showed me?
For the mocap portion and what the character was kind of modeled after and stuff like that.
I thought
But
you
as
said the
as a lot
character was
of the other design, the actual design and the costumes, I thought was done by his wife. But I might be wrong. It's been a few months since we actually dug into it.
Yeah. I did pick that game up, by the way, and it's pretty dang good. So
I mean,
I got
I'll
it
say
for
this.
$30.
For Stellar Blade, because I did play through it and beat the game, at least on the first playthrough. It grabs your attention with the character design, how she looks and stuff like that. but that's not why you stay and continue to play the game. I mean, at points the story left a lot to be desired near the end. It kind of felt like they were kind of set up for a potential sequel. I feel like a lot of answers were left up in the air, but obviously for that game specifically, it was the gameplay that kept me coming around. The gameplay, the music, and stuff like that. Because when you're actually playing the game like that, you're not even paying attention to the character. There's a lot going on screen, a lot of action. Outside of cutscenes and some downtime, essentially. But kind of like with this, I think for Outlaws, I'm like, yeah, kind of. She kind of looks like she was based off a more 70s era,
That's what I see.
Design.
I don't think it's bad.
That's definitely what I saw. But I think it's coming from Ubisoft. People have assumptions of what's going on behind the scenes. They see what else Disney specifically has done with Star Wars, and they're kind of thinking, oh, we're expecting this out of the story. So, we're going into it with a lot of preconceived notions based off what's been done with other IPs.
You're exactly right. I think people are on edge about it, and they're anticipating.
I feel like
with that kind of stuff,
you're either on one extreme or the other with that stuff. Like, there's nobody in the middle. Like, at least not that many people. It's people outraged on one end or the other.
Yeah, it's very few people, and the same can be said for God. So many things in the world, right? There's very few that can kind of see both sides, and it's in so many spheres. We see it obviously with gaming and the console wars. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah,
this ain't Sega and Super Nintendo days. This doesn't need to exist.
Like it was cool
we're
then.
Spoiled. We can enjoy it all.
It was cool then, and it worked because the marketing forced it. So realistically, Nintendo and Sega forced us, mostly on Sega side, but Nintendo did stuff too. Sega stuff was absurd. The whole Nintendo and all that jazz. But
it was great. Yeah.
It was good then when they were like the dominant consoles, but now you got 3 and you got PC, which is bigger than ever, and it's just like, who cares? Just play the game how you can play it. Like, I just don't care.
A lot of games out there.
If you're an adult, you can get all the consoles if you want. So, like, what? Just who cares? We got time for that.
I thought about this the other day, and I think what the younger generation, I say younger, but it's people of all ages who want to participate in these console wars.
Yeah.
But let's just say that the people that are, it's like, I don't think that they understand growing up in the 90s, it was a luxury to own a video game console. And if you did, you only owned one.
Yes,
so you had to choose. Today, you don't have to choose.
Yeah.
Today, kids have PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch. But back then, it was different.
Mm-hmm.
And so it made more sense, like, well, this is my console. This is the only one I'm getting. My parents said, you're lucky to even get this. So you stood behind it because that is what you got. And you knew you weren't getting anything else until you got a job, until you're old enough to legally work.
Yeah.
And this generation, I think now doesn't understand that that's probably where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Plus, kids just in general are brutal.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a kid, like, I definitely did that as a kid, man. I for sure I did that as a kid, but I can't even remember what I would have said. Like, I don't care, man. Just play how you can play. But we've got a bunch of games coming to Amazon Prime Gaming. A whole crap ton of them. I think there's 22 games total for August. So we got SteamWorld Heist, Deus Ex, Mankind Divided, Tomb Raider, The Angel of Darkness, Tomb Raider, The Last Revelation plus Chronicles, Gravity Circuit, South of the Circle, Loop Hero, Trek to Yami, which is a really good indie game, Kraken Academy, Baldur's Gate 2 Enhanced Edition, Beholder 3, Hard West 2, Engarde, Stray Gods, a role-playing musical, Grime Definitive Edition, Kiwi. I've got, for some reason, have that on PS5 and Switch. I don't remember why. Spells and Secrets, Young Souls, Arcade Paradise, and Industrious. So that is a jam-packed August for Prime Gaming. I gotta say, that service, man, I don't hear a ton of people talk about it. I hear people talk about it, but not as much as I would expect. It gets a lot of games, man. You got a lot of games on there. Prime pays for itself, I think, with just these games. Yeah, every month there's a couple like garbage ones. I'm like, why is this on here? Like, what is this? But it's like through another website and stuff like that. So like, just ignore it. But there's some pretty good ones on here. The Tomb Raider ones, they're not the greatest games ever. I'll put it that way. But they're fine.
Yeah, not those older ones. Not older ones aren't as good. The reboot trilogy was
so good.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I thought so too. But SteamWorld Heist is really good. The Deus Ex game is good. And if you haven't played Baldur's Gate 2, I mean, I think it's essential to play that if you like those type of games. Like, it's a must-play for that genre. I love Baldur's Gate 2. Yeah, for sure.
I think this is decent because it gives a lot of love. Some of these are on the Amazon Games app. Some it's a GOG code. I don't think any of these ones are. Some are on Epic and stuff like that. So it's not like you all have to be stuck on the Amazon Games app. Plus,
Right.
I mean, if you have PC, you can just have them all. So it's not really that much of an issue.
Yeah, those are some solid releases though. SteamWorld Heist is, of course, the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Reviews just dropped, I believe, yesterday, day before. SteamWorld Heist 2. So makes sense they're getting that. And another one though, Gravity Circuit, that's on there.
Yeah.
You guys haven't played that. That's a fantastic.
Might have to look that up.
Excellent game. Yeah, I was happy to see that on there, and Hard West 2 is pretty cool as well.
Oh yeah,
the games you mentioned.
Very good. Oh, Gravity Circuit. I've seen this game. Yeah, who put the physical out for this? Didn't one of the?
I have it pre-ordered. I'm trying to remember who put it out though. It wasn't limited run.
I thought it was one of the limited companies,
but I think it was. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It might have been. Was it Premium Edition? Oh, Red Art Games. Okay, yeah, I saw this go up. So yeah, it looks really, really cool. So it's like it's basically a Mega Man game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite series. So I gotta check this out.
Yeah, I love Mega Man.
Yeah, it looks like it was put out by Pix and Love.
Oh, Pix and Love did it too.
Yeah, I believe that's what popped up for it. I believe that's the one that did it.
Huh. Well, interesting. Yeah, it looks like a cool one. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, it looks cool. So, yeah, some good stuff there with that. Did anybody see anything else they wanted to point out on that? No.
Be fair, like 90% of these I've never heard before, so.
I mean, that's where you find the gems, though, honestly.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
Amazon Prime Gaming gets some weird stuff, too. But, like, you can definitely find... I've discovered a lot of really good indies from Prime Gaming.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, especially if you're already paying for the service, it's like, oh, well, free game, give it a shot.
Most people aren't paying for the service for Prime Gaming anyway. They're just paying for it to get their stuff for their house and, things like that, so.
Yeah. It's a mixture of Prime Video and because I like the free fast shipping.
All right, what do we got next, Mark?
Let me back out real quick. We got some stuff for the Xbox Gamescom for later this year.
Yeah, so this one was...
They've got a 3-day live broadcast for Xbox Gamescom.
Yeah, we got a kind of an update to this, too. Like, just a few hours ago. I sent it to him, but yeah, 3 days. So, did we stream something with Gamescom last year? Or the year before? I
can't remember if it was Gamescom or something else, to be fair.
I can't remember either. But yeah, it's 3 days. They put out like kind of a roadmap for everything they've got going on, which I'm pulling up now. Yeah. I thought I had.
So apparently it's Wednesday through Friday of the 21st to the 23rd. So in about 3 weeks. And every day it's supposed to be Gamescom for the first half, and then a Bethesda mainstream the second half every day.
Yeah, and I noticed that they listed the games they're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
For Xbox, but Bethesda, there's nothing listed. So obviously, curious what will be there.
Elder Scrolls 6.
I mean, well, Bethesda.
Maybe.
If it's Bethesda, I assume it's the main Bethesda, not just the BSG. But even you can think of like what games it realistically could be, or the handful of IPs that studio explicitly owns. Probably gonna get something Elder Scrolls because you got ESO, something Fallout with Fallout 76. Might get something Doom related. We assume. Obviously, we're probably still a few years out from Elder Scrolls 6, but probably gonna get something from that.
We're gonna get the logo.
Yeah, and
Metroid
then the
Prime
other
4.
handful of potentially a whole other bunch of games that they could talk about. But
Yeah. Well, their roadmap that they put out on X, basically, it's stuff that we already knew about. Avowed got delayed to 2025. Not shocked about that at all. World of Warcraft: The War Within, Age of Mythology, Retold, Era, History Untold. These are all ones that I think that we've already gone over and talked about before, but they got the release dates for everything except South of Midnight, Doom: The Dark Ages, and Fable. They just put 2025 for all those, and then they put and more. So they do got some other stuff to show, apparently. So I see in at least one announcement, but they closed how many Bethesda studios down? Or Bethesda, what would you call them? Developers? Is that right? Is that what you would say? Because they shut down the Tango Works that did Hi-Fi Rush, but I think there was 4 that they closed down.
yeah, I was trying to pull it up real quick.
It's 4. It was Arcane Austin.
Yeah.
Tango Gameworks, of course. So the guys that did Hi-Fi Rush, Ghostwire Tokyo, Evil Within, which was a great game.
Yeah, it looked like they said Alpha Dog Studios or Alpha Dog Games, and then they merged Roundhouse Studios with Cinemax Online.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of casualties.
A lot, man. It's just unreal. You know, I was thinking about this the other day, and I've thought this because there was a stretch of at least, Mark, I don't know, at least 10 episodes straight or something like that, where every single week we announced
early in the year.
Yeah, at least 10 podcasts in a row every week. There were people that, lost their jobs. So then we finally got a 2-week break, and then there would be another one, and it would just be kind of sporadic from there. But yeah, it sucks, and I don't know what person in their right mind would want to get into video games as a profession in 2024. And that sucks.
Somebody does.
Because it's we want these games to keep coming, and we want people that are making them to be excited about making games. So we get games that we enjoy, good games that come from a good place. I just don't know who's going to want to be the future of gaming other than indie developers, which is great. Yeah. But you still as much as I don't necessarily like how the landscape of gaming is, you still have to have AAA games to balance everything out. You still got to have big, massive games. As much as I don't like most of them that come out, it seems like, but you still got to have it. You still got to have that to balance everything out. It's the same thing in music and movies, and you got to have the big dogs doing something that have all the money, Yeah. So
yeah, absolutely. You got to have the movies at the film festivals, and then you got to have the summer blockbusters.
Yep. You got to have
the big Thanksgiving blockbusters. You need everything to really be your strength.
Yeah, for sure. And so I just hope that, I want things to go good with Xbox, but it seems like we're maybe heading in a direction where there's going to be a big shift for Xbox. Sony's going to have to learn to adapt. We're going to talk about something later where if Sony would have just did it from the beginning, they would have sold like gangbusters. Some of these companies are just so stuck in their ways too with stuff, and it just kind of sucks. Kind of sucks, man. But we've also... go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you can go.
I was going to say, I am pretty excited that we're going to get an update on Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl, on day one. That game's been in development since 2018. And I think, of course, it's partially, from what I read as well, casualty of COVID and then the war. The Ukraine war. They're affected by that too, I read. And it's just been a long time coming, so I'm happy to finally see that game coming out. And then the other game they're talking about on the first day is Atomfall. And I went back and rewatched the trailer from the Xbox Game Showcase. And this game looks very interesting. And based on the trailer, you can't tell what kind of game it's going to be. So yeah, I
Right.
went on the website, did a little research. It's actually a single player survival action game. But just by looking at the trailer, it almost looks like it could be a multiplayer focused game. And to my surprise, actually, when I saw it was a single player survival game, I'm like, okay, like I'm actually a little bit more hyped for that now. It's definitely on my radar now because of that. So that should be interesting. I'm looking forward to getting an update on that game for Xbox's first day of the conference.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. Gamescom is, it's like a mid-tier show, I would say. I think we get some good stuff there sometimes. It just depends. Like some years have been better than others. I looked up at some of the announcements of previous years, and there was some big stuff that got announced. So
yeah.
So
I feel like it's getting bigger. I feel like it's actually growing, and especially
E3's
with
gone.
E3. With E3 being gone, I feel like there's a void that can be filled not just through Summer Game Fest with Keighley. Like I think some of the other shows throughout the year that are scheduled can become bigger now too because of that void of E3. And I think Gamescom is going to be most likely one of them. I mean, we got probably the best, juiciest Switch 2 rumor that came out of Gamescom last year, apparently behind closed doors. So I'm hoping we'll get some more of that this year.
That'd be nice.
Any
Right?
trickle truth, yeah, especially after the big Nintendo leaker kind of got found out.
Yeah. I forget which one that was.
Are you talking about Pioro?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's his name. Pioro. I don't know how to say it, but I used to say Pyro, but I think it's Pioro. I heard somebody else say that, so I'm just gonna roll with it. Yeah, what's crazy about that? You know what happened with that, right? Like it was actually a Google employee. They're checking. They can access anything, man.
Yep.
Their access to people's voice data in your child's room, and they can dive into any of that. A Google employee is leaking out all this stuff. That's absurd. And it was through like a Google, or I don't remember what it was like through that he was able to access it. YouTube, right?
They're able to see the source code and the private videos that were being uploaded to the accounts. And so obviously if you can see the private videos,
crazy, man.
Yeah, you know what's going to be shown. So yeah, that was pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. There's a lot of ways, if you know you have a leak, ways you can go out and address it. Because I think one of the more creative ways or simpler ways, as far as like at leakers, was with what Elon Musk did with X, and a few years ago, of like, we sent out the same email, but there was slightly different changes, like an extra space here or something like that. Essentially giving each, like, for if you're leaking emails, each one a specific ID, so you can like find somebody, or somebody just being careless, put it on a Google Drive. It's like, well, yeah, but there's a trail potentially.
Yeah, that was very clever.
Yeah, definitely. I remember saying, Mark, oh yeah, he's definitely from Japan, because they put out the tweet that said Osaka. So we were like, oh, he's from Japan. He's a Nintendo employee. It's like, nope, Google employee.
That's what the assumption was.
Yeah. So
I mean, still could have been from Japan. Google's got offices over there.
No, well, yeah, he could be, but what's the likelihood that he's not using VPN or all right, so we also got PlayStation monthly games. We got Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, which is actually really good, really good. Five Nights at Freddy's: Security Breach, Ender Lily's Quietus of the Nights.
Excellent game.
It is
excellent game, honestly. Yeah,
I'll have to look it up.
The sequel was shown at the last Nintendo Direct, which is Ender Magnolia. It's currently in Steam Early Access right now, and it's scheduled, of course, to come to consoles later this year. So, like, once again, though, you looked at the Amazon games, and you had Steam World Heist with the sequel coming out.
Yeah.
Here with PlayStation Plus, smaller indie studio, you got Ender Lilies, the first game, with, of course, the sequel coming out very soon this year. So it's good to see these games getting the spotlight on the premium services like PlayStation Plus because it's going to give them an opportunity to sell better. And believe it or not, Ender Lilies sold. I was looking at this. I was impressed. Sold 1.5 million copies.
Ooh, dang.
Yeah,
Impressive.
between Switch, PlayStation, I believe it's on Xbox as well, and Steam, and that's since 2022. So only in 2 years, 1.5 mil, and it's
an indie game, right?
Yeah, it's an action RPG, and if some people call it a Metroidvania, it has elements of both.
It's like a
So-
doesn't it have Dark Souls elements too?
Yeah, it has Souls elements too. Like there's a lot going on there.
I remember this game.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited actually for the sequel. I was happy to see that at the Nintendo Direct
Mhm.
because obviously I knew Nintendo needed to fill out their calendar for the rest of the year, so I was happy to see that. But yeah, if you guys haven't played it, everyone listening to the show, if you guys have not played Ender Lilies, I highly suggest it.
Heck yeah. I remember them showing the sequel, and then I just remember this game when they first showed it. It looks really cool. I need to play it. Definitely need to add it to my list to check out because it looks really cool. I was just watching a trailer on it again, so
Yeah. And if you're curious, it's just because it's easier for me to pull it up on Steam. It's on. It's not on sale, but it's a $25 game, so it's not terribly expensive for an indie game.
yeah, that's cool. I'm gonna have to check it out. I like the art style of it too. Looks cool.
Yeah, I do too. Actually, that's what originally drew me to the game. I think one of the indie YouTube channels, it might be I Dream of Indie Games or I Dream of Indie,
Mm-hmm.
and they were showing actually Metroidvania games. I remember seeing it on there. I'm like, oh, this game looks very interesting. So then I did my own research on it and ended up buying it. And yeah, the rest is history. Great game. I'm excited for the sequel.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I'm definitely gonna check it out. I just added it to my list. So next we got Braid Anniversary Edition, sold like dog shit. Developer Jonathan Below says. I think this is interesting. Braid is a really good game. I didn't know about this Anniversary Edition. It doesn't look like it's a good game, but the time it came out, it was like a special time for indie games. We weren't getting indie games like that, and this was like, dare I say, at the very top during that time period of indie games coming out. It's phenomenal. I think the game's great, but I don't know anything about the Anniversary Edition of it and what else comes with it. I assume just more content. But it was announced in 2020, and it came out in 2008. So it's an old game. Definitely good though, man. It's really, really good. Looks like they may have like remastered it based on what I'm seeing here with the screenshots, because it definitely looks more clean. I actually think it makes it look kind of weird with the character. He looks like too much like a doll, if you will. It reminds me of Slappy from Goosebumps. That's what he looks
I
like.
remember that. Classic. Yeah, it's unfortunate that it didn't sell well, because obviously, like, when Braid came out, like you were saying, Brandon, you're dead on. It was like the crown jewel of indie titles back then, and that's when indies were pretty new, actually.
yeah.
To the scene, especially like entering consoles with Xbox. This was one of those Xbox arcade games, if I recall, Xbox Live Arcade, and you didn't expect much from Xbox Live Arcade back then, and so when you got a game like Braid that was actually really good, everyone was playing it, everyone was talking about it, and again, as you mentioned, the thing is though is that scene has changed so much since then.
Yeah.
Indie games are really one. There's a ton of great games, but they're highly respected now.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you've got so many games coming out. You look at the Switch eShop and the amount of absolute garbage that comes out on there.
A lot of shovelware.
A lot of shovelware, a lot of AI put together stuff of like poker games, where they got a pretty girl in the front of it, but it's just a poker game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Stuff like that. So it's a different landscape for indie now. I mean, it's good that we're getting more stuff, but there's also along with that, more crap comes too, and it's just the way that it goes and everything. Music, like, you know, music I'm into, like a lot of the scenes with that are bigger than ever, but everything sounds the same, so you got to dig through music to find a band that stands out. It's like all this has been done. This was done 25 years ago, better than you're doing it. You know what I mean? Like that type of stuff. So indie stuff's pretty new, like you were saying. Like that was a pretty, you know, there has been other indie stuff. So anybody that comes at me in the comments later, there's been other indie stuff throughout the years, but that was like really kind of the new period where we were getting, you know, like some really, really great indie stuff that's like stood the test of time. But I think that this one, I don't know. I haven't heard anybody talk about Braid since that time. Yeah. So I don't know if it's that. I can't tell you one person that's mentioned Braid to me until I saw this article. But it's a phenomenal game. But I just haven't heard anybody talk about it.
And I saw it in the chat as well, and I kind of brought it up. Do you feel like this wasn't properly advertised as it should have been? Because I don't ever remember hearing about this. It may have been advertised, but it's just like you see it once and then you forget about it.
Yeah. Okay, so to me, it was not advertised. And I agree with chat. Mr. McCoffey, Mr. Radar there, said it was poorly advertised. 100% it was poorly advertised. I only knew about it because at the beginning of the year, actually like December last year, I had an Excel sheet up and I'm like literally filling out my Excel sheet with the calendar releases for the year, just so I can kind of like figure out, okay, I know for sure I'm going to be doing this game at that point. And I saw Braid.
I like that you do that. I just want to point that out because that's I might make note of that. Maybe I should do that too. Get a little more organized.
I'll shoot you over my Excel. I got that in there. I have my backlog. I have all the games, how long they take to beat based on howlongtobeat.com. So you can sort it. I got all sorts of stuff there to try and be as efficient as possible because backlogs, you know how they are, man.
Yeah, they're brutal.
They don't stop growing. Even if we try, but sometimes you just got to get a game when it's a game you've been waiting years for. You're not going to wait longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had seen Braid Anniversary Edition, and that is the only reason I knew about Braid coming out.
Yeah.
And I see the news every day, just like you guys do. So if none of us saw anything outside of me happening to see it on a release calendar, that tells you that the advertising was terrible, which is unfortunate.
Now, I might be off base on this. I don't remember which indie director, if it was Braid or if it was that game where I don't know why I can't think of the name of it. People loved it too, but I remember the developer of that game. It was one person. It was just the one guy. The game was like rated a 10.
Axiom Verge?
No, this would have been before, I think, even that. This was around 2008. So I think there was like Super Meat Boy, there was this, and there was another that was like kind of the holy trinity of indie games at that time. Like it was at the top of everyone's list for a couple of years during that time. I can't remember what it's called. He like goes from 2D to 3D. It's like a puzzle game. Anyway.
Oh, Mutant? Was it Mutant Buds?
No, I love that game though.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I'll have to look here in a minute. But anyway, it was either this guy or them, but they were they were like a prick. The guy was a prick. I listened to interviews with him in like a conference where he went to go speak, and he's just like an a-hole. And it might not have been this guy, it might have been the other guy. I can't remember.
Yeah,
just the face he's making. He looks not nice.
I don't know anything about him, but I did see in comments on Twitter, like about this article, people in the comments were saying that it's deserved because this guy is a jerk.
Yep, Fez is the game, by the way.
Fez, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, so apparently, I mean, obviously, just with his name, I'm sure you can gather that people were making a lot of jokes.
Yeah. So
in the comments. Yeah. And they basically said it was deserved, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But so you gotta treat everyone right. Treat people good, man.
Yeah, no, he was not very nice to people in like interviews. He was like just an a-hole. I just remember that. there was a lot of stuff where people were talking in forums during that time and absolutely hated the guy. They loved the game, but couldn't stand the developer of it. So it is unfortunate. But I just got to say, I didn't know that howlongtobeat.com existed. So I just went there and made an account.
Dude, it's such a great, I kid you not, it is a great website, and it really helps you to kind of plan what to play. I mean, if you play a game that's, say, an RPG that's 50 or 60 hours, right?
Yeah.
Usually I like to, after that, play a game that's a little bit shorter, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
Before I jump into another huge game. And sometimes, though, you'll play the next game and you think it's shorter. And then suddenly you're like, this isn't shorter. I thought it was. And you're like 20, 30 hours in. And obviously, I didn't like that because like, you know, I'm trying to structure this a certain way. How Long to Beat truly allows you to do that. It's very cool. And it shows you how long to just roll the credits, how long to do a lot of these side quests, but not all, and then how long to basically 100% complete the game. And it's all based on user submissions and data.
Yeah.
So it pulls like your PlayStation data if you're signed up through PlayStation, and it'll, I believe, it might pull your like trophy data as well if you allow it to. But at any rate, it's very helpful. Hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, that's a cool tool. Definitely for people that are listening and watching. Definitely check that out because that's pretty neat. I mean, that does come in handy because, you know, we're trying to fit in time for stuff. I was talking about, I think it was last week, Mark, I may have mentioned it. Super Mario RPG remake came out. I bought that. Yeah. Not Super Princess Peach. Princess Peach Showtime. There's a bunch of stuff, Nintendo stuff and some other things, all came out pretty close together. A little too close where it's hard for me to keep up. And Super Mario RPG, I played 2 hours. Meanwhile, I love the original. I beat it probably at least 10 times. I love it. But there was just too much coming out. I just don't have time. I mean, like, sometimes it's hard to fit in a couple hours a week. You know, I don't really have days where I got a couple of hours to play games. Sometimes that happens, not often. And it sucks because I definitely don't play as much as I probably should be able to. It's hard to keep up, you know? I can't tell you the last time I sat down and played a game for 3 hours. It's been at least a year. I've sat down and played a game for an hour. You know, it's hard for some games to only be able to play an hour of the game. You don't make much progress sitting down, getting started, trying to remember the controls real quick. And
yeah, all that. Trying to remember the controls, what you did last, what you were planning to do next. And it's like you have to make the most out of whatever window of game time you have.
Yeah.
And so I get it. And when I was working 60, 70 plus hours in the mortgage business, that's actually when I created this Excel spreadsheet. This wasn't even when I was doing YouTube. It was more or less like, hey, when I have time to game, I need to make the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is going to help me make the most of it.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to, you know, get in that game time and any way that could help me. So I totally get it, man. Totally.
Yeah, and then just wanted to shout out a couple people there in the comments. We got KP the Beard Man popped in. Palmer Froggy guy, he's been in here for a little while. Our one and only Mr. Coffee, Mr. Radar, he's with us every single week. We got Braden, my cousin, or my nephew. I said that. My nephew. Sorry about that. Yeah, so that's everybody that's popped in the chat. So
yeah, and I just wanted to say, as far as like on the Twitch side, because we're obviously hitting both. We had Fragile Masculinity come in because we had Opus 1974 come in with the raid. Jedi Kai 02 was in here. Obviously Opus 1974 as well, and then the real one Penguin popped in as well. I just want to appreciate everybody that's watching.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, those are the ones that I told you have been hanging out with me for the last basically 5 days of streaming. So yeah, it's cool. I did 2 1-hour streams. Not super exciting, but hey, you know, just getting in what you can. So the thing about scheduling a stream is that you force it in. So do you know what I mean? You schedule it ahead of time, so you're kind of stuck and tethered to that schedule.
Yep.
You make the schedule and it's there. So that's when I get to play games the most. It might only be an hour, but hey, at least you get to get something in. So
Exactly.
not too bad. Next we've got what do I have here? Mario and Sonic Olympic Games is apparently dead. So I saw this come out earlier in the week. People were asking on X why we didn't have another one coming out with the Olympics going on, and they basically kind of said it's like dead in the water. It's kind of interesting because like these games have never done very well. I want to say the first one like is sold pretty good, but they're not great.
The first
games.
one's all the way back on the Wii for the 2008 Beijing Olympics is when it first started.
Yep.
It was like a big deal, so people bought into that. But then they,
Well, it was cool. I think it was novel because you had Mario and Sonic, who obviously were bitter rivals, but they were past that because we had the GameCube era with Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, and you had other Sega games like Monkey Ball and Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg. You had all these great Sega games. So water under the bridge, but it was still cool to see like Sonic and Mario pitted against each other.
It was a big deal.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't care for the games. I do not. But I respect it, what they were doing, and I liked the idea of it. And I felt like there was definitely a market for this. I think with the game being dead, the most unfortunate part about this is the circumstances behind why it was dropped. And that to me is mind-boggling, that the reason there's no longer a Mario and Sonic is because the Olympics wanted to make their own game.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
The NFT stuff.
Jeez.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's absurd. And they didn't want to buy into that, so
it's horrible because think about this, guys. A Olympic mobile game where you're opening up packs of cards, essentially, gotcha packs, to get NFTs. So you're not guaranteed anything. Just like if you're playing Ultimate Madden mode or NBA 2K, and you're spending real world money to get NFTs, and you have no idea probably what the odds are. I took a look at some of the pricing. You got packs NFTs where you get maybe 5 NFTs, $20. Could you imagine this? Like if your kid was buying this stuff?
It's crazy. Yeah, absurd, absolutely absurd. The NFT stuff, I thought we were kind of done with that. I thought we were kind of over the NFT thing, but apparently they're, I don't think it would have did like anything they expected it to do. I feel like this was maybe, I hate to even say development, but maybe like an idea in development for a while. And they were kind of sitting on it. Obviously with the Olympics, you got to wait until it comes around.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on, but these companies are so delayed with their thinking and with the strategy of what type of games these are, and what's chasing trends. They're chasing trends that trend was dead 6 months ago.
Yeah. Who obviously we had Suicide Squad. That was it. That was a casualty.
Garbage.
We got Concord coming up, which I don't know if it'll be good or not, but the feedback amongst the gaming community is that it looks like just another generic looter shooter, and everyone's just playing copycat here, trying to cash in. It's like
Marvel Rivals.
When your game design is based around how you can make the most money, you're not going to make a good game. It has to come from a better place than money. That can't be your fuel, because when you do it the right way, you will make money.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate that so many of these companies don't see that. It's like, come on, dude, that's not how it works. Go make a great game and the money will follow.
I swear to God, if I ran if I ran a music company and then like a gaming studio, like I wouldn't be buying into the trends at all. Like keep me away from the trends, because all that does is create garbage and floods, good games coming out. Because they made, this stupid Concord game, there could have been another game in its place that was a 10 out of 10 and, was leaving a mark in gaming history.
Yeah.
Just you don't chase trends. That's the idea here. I don't know why they don't get that. Don't chase trends. The trends die too quicker than the game will be, coming out. It takes 4 years
Yeah.
to develop the game. The trend is
Exactly.
hot right now for this 1 week, So
right.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing is the game development, we all know it's taking so much longer now. And developers have been very open about that. And the studios that games are taking much longer now. So if a game is taking off a certain game, why would you try and make that game today knowing it's not coming out till fall of 2028, best case scenario?
Yep. I just don't get it.
I think it's just a bigger problem of investments and being beholden to the stock market, and your investors and stuff like that, chasing profit. So hey,
You bring a good point.
Overwatch made a lot of money. Just make another clone. We'll hopefully overtake it. We're confident it will, and then it bombs, and it's you're out a bunch of money, and your live service game within a year doesn't even exist anymore. You can't play it.
I want to sit in on some of these board meetings and wonder what they're thinking. You got 18 people here in this board meeting, and nobody stands up and says, hey, this is a terrible idea. Let's not do this. This game will be out in 6, 7, 8 years. Who knows? It could be a Metroid Prime, 4 situation. It could be a Duke Nukem Forever situation where that was like 12 years or something crazy.
Yeah.
You never know. Development hell is real. We all know that. So
it is. And Kyle, you bring a good point though about the shareholders and their ideas and suggestions. I think sometimes messing with the whole game development situation here. And I think that's unfortunate too, is that like you should listen to your shareholders, right? But they should not be making the games. Otherwise, they would become game designers. They go to school and figure out how to do it, and then go do it. So it's just like, come on, man! You can't let that happen.
I agree.
Nintendo doesn't let it happen. We know that.
I mean, Nintendo, I praise them all the time for being the one to not do that. They don't chase trends with that. Now, there sometimes stuff that comes out, right? Like the mobile department with the Pikmin game and stuff like that. But in general, with their consoles, they don't necessarily do that. I mean, a game comes out and it does well. It might not be like some big explosion, but like it sticks to a formula and doesn't chase trends, right? And that's why they're still around, and they are, the size of Disney and stuff like that. So
yeah, they've always been the innovators.
Yeah, whether it's good or bad for some things, like they do their own thing. Whether it's the Wii not having HD out and
oh yeah, there's plenty of examples for sure.
Yeah, and then I just wanted to mention it because it's killing me. I can't remember who I was watching. So it was a YouTube video, but as far as like investors, like there's a lot of people in the investors and space, shareholders, that don't care about the long-term health and security of the industry. They're in it for short-term profit. They make their money, then they're going to pull their money out. All they care about is short-term games. They don't care if the studio ends up being closed or people lose their jobs. As long as they make more money than they put in, pulling out, essentially, that's all they care about. And they're going to move on to the next investment.
Yeah, there's no loyalty to the company. It's about making money. That's what they're interested in. And so in turn, some of these studios are taking on that same mindset that, well, I got to appease them, because if I don't, then we might not be able to make games anymore. We might not have the money to, so I have to do this. And then they release something that they're not even proud of. And I feel bad for some of those developers because they don't have complete control over their approach, unfortunately.
Yeah,
very little, if any. Yeah.
Yep.
Outside of like the indie suits, if you've got bad management, you're gonna probably pump out a bad game that's gonna lose money, and then you are gonna be the one that gets the axe while your bosses get a pay raise.
Yeah, just like anywhere in the real world, right? Any business, there's a lot of that stuff going on.
We're going to be talking about some of it tonight. Some pretty scummy stuff. But Mark, what do we got going on with the Trail series?
Yeah, so I saw this as less of I just kind of saw it as kind of curious. Because obviously the Trails is several games. I think it's over a dozen at this point.
I
can't remember.
Quite
there's a lot. But they apparently in a recent interview, they said obviously as of right now, there's about 710 hours worth of story, and they say essentially when they started back when they were in their 20s making these games early on, they didn't have the necessary life experience to essentially properly end this saga.
I love it.
Assuming I'm hoping nothing was lost in translation from some of these developers, but it's like, where we started and where we're at now, like the games that we're making now would have been impossible, 20 years ago, just because we didn't have the experience mixture of like between life experience and just developing games in general, which I thought was a very interesting take on a series that's really popular, especially in the JRPG.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Have you?
Go ahead.
No, sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, I think that's really interesting. Like that's a very unique way to put it. Yeah, hopefully nothing was lost in translation, but that's cool to think about it that way. To say, I didn't properly develop as a person yet, so like, these characters I'm making, I can't properly make these characters or end this particular story the way I want to right now. So that's pretty cool. Definitely different. Definitely a different way to put it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
respect the heck out of the take. I do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know what you're talking about. And I did read that when that came out. I feel like it wasn't too long ago.
Yeah.
But Falcom, they've been putting out quality stuff.
Oh yeah.
Between the Trails and the Ease series.
Yeah.
And if you look at like the origin, right, of the Ease series to where it is today, I mean, when Ease Nordics went up for pre-order,
I snatched that right away.
I snatched it up immediately, and then when the Ease memoir game that's coming out, same thing. I pre-ordered that. So obviously I got 2 Ease games right now pre-ordered, and those games have come a long way. And
Oh yeah.
between Ease and Trails, those are some of the best JRPGs out there.
I agree.
Which is
Oh, yeah.
awesome. And I think it comes from attitudes like that, though.
Mm-hmm. I
Where
mean,
you can actually take a look in the mirror and say, "Hey, I don't think we could have made this game back then because I wasn't even fully developed as a person. Like I've grown a lot since then. I've gained wisdom, not just about game design, but in life in general. And now we make better games because of those experiences. That's cool. I like to see that.
That's what's
Yeah,
really
definitely.
cool about these Japanese studios and developers. Just their mindset with everything. It's just a complete 180 from the way Western develop. This let me say this because I actually talked about this week. I said the problem with PlayStation is when they moved away from being a Japanese focused company completely to shifting to now being a Western focused company, and you can pinpoint it right to that point is when the problems with PlayStation really started. Like when they started focusing on the Western side of things and making Western games, whatever that means. There was actually stories that were coming out like that. That's where the problems with PlayStation really started. You think back to the PS1, PS2, how many different unique type of games were coming out in those consoles. You got a game where you play as a mosquito, sucking blood out of people, and just what's the that crazy game that has that absurd accessory for it, Zez or something.
I always think of Parappa the Rapper.
Oh, I mean,
a game like that wouldn't exist.
they would never do that now. They would never do that now.
I think you see it now in games, but I mean, you go back 20 years, even when they started making these games, like games that came out of like, Xbox or just Western studios in general. You can tell 20 years ago they were making games because they loved to make games, and it's definitely gone the way of corporate profits above all else. Like there's no heart or soul in a lot of these games anymore.
Yeah,
I agree.
you see a ton of that, and I think you're right, Brandon. Also about when it all probably happened, right? Is when they decided to become more Western.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a whole, and I don't have data to back it up, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say this, but I'm pretty sure it's right, is that the Japanese studios that are in Japan, they have far, far less turnover. When you work there, you work there for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like an extension of family. There's you don't hear about layoffs out there in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Very rare, but it's different out there. And Japan's where it all started. Obviously, yeah, the most sales are coming out of the US because you know what? The US
Ja-
consumes the most of
Japan's not
everything.
realistically not that big of a country too. Is another
Yeah.
thing. The population's
Oh yeah.
pretty different.
But that's still the heart of video games is
Mhm.
Japan. Like I have plans to go there
Yeah,
for
me
my
too.
my 40th birthday in May. And I'm very excited to, go see the Nintendo Museum. I think we're gonna stay in Osaka, but
That's
I'm excited to
awesome.
go to like the video game
I'm so
stores.
jealous.
Yeah, I'm really excited to go.
It's literally
because
my
of that.
dream to go there and has been since I was like 10 years old.
Same here.
I've always dreamed of just like waking up there.
Yeah,
It
I
sounds
always wanted to go
ridiculous,
there
but
since I was a kid.
yeah, and realistically it is because of video games kind of to start. Like we knew, everything was pretty much there. Everything
Yeah.
we loved, all of Nintendo and PlayStation at the time. It's a shame, man, to see what's happening with PlayStation 2 because like it's just a lot of negative with these companies, but you don't
Oh yeah.
hear as much of that with Nintendo. So, and I think
Yeah.
that's why. Yeah, I think it
You really
legitimately
don't.
different mindsets. It's a different landscape. People treat each other differently.
Yes, big
You,
time.
the negativity isn't there as much. Sure, you got the Yakuza, but there's going to be a little
Yeah.
bit of something everywhere. So,
Yeah.
You see that too with the company heads though, with PlayStation and Xbox and then Nintendo, right? Even before Doug Bowser though, you had Jim Ryan over at PlayStation and you had Uncle Phil and of course Reggie, and
yeah,
the way their community bashes, unfortunately, a lot of the PlayStation fans bash Jim Ryan and they bash Phil Spencer, but you never saw anyone bashing Reggie. You really didn't.
Yep.
Everyone
Oh,
loves the
no.
dude.
my body is
And-
ready.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying one's better than the other because you guys know I play all the games. But what
Yeah.
I'm saying is, I wish that PlayStation and Xbox had that too, to where like you
Yeah.
actually respect it, your company heads instead of
Yeah.
bash them all the time on social media. And I think that's a lot of the Western stuff though getting in the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you don't even see that as much, the social media stuff in Japan. Like, you don't see a lot of negative bullcrap coming out. You don't hear stuff about their government. You don't hear, you know what I mean? Like, the stuff that's
Yeah.
coming out here is the polar opposite of anything you hear about there. Like, the landscape of politics and stuff here, and where people are so divided, man. Like, it is brutal.
Yeah.
You would never, you're never going to catch me putting out a political tweet on Twitter, I'm telling you, because I don't
yeah.
need that negativity in my life.
No, there's a lot of toxicity out there, and I always said the same thing. I won't talk politics. I unfortunately don't believe a large majority of our country is mature enough to talk about the subject and have a good conversation where we can see all sides and be respectful. And I don't think that's going to change. So therefore, you'll never hear me talk about it.
Yeah.
And that way I don't have to deal with it. It works out good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame, man. It's a shame how different it is. But
Yeah, I just want to say before we moved on, I just wanted to actually, for the condo of the president, some of the stuff that he'd actually said when they talked with him back earlier this year during Anime Expo. Some of the stuff that he said, I cut out some of it. He says, "I'm almost 50 now, and I've seen good things and bad things in life, unjust situations and unfair outcomes. And we wanted to create a game that speaks to those changes and challenges we experienced. We wouldn't have been able to write a story like this in our 20s simply because we didn't have the necessary life experience." He said also, everyone has their own way of living in their own lives, and we should just try to make our way through the world as best we can, given the circumstances we have to deal with. I think it definitely shows in some of their games. It's just kind of like where we're at in our 20s when we first make a game is one way, and then the games change as we mature and change, both in game design and how you're writing a story and stuff like that, which I think it says a lot.
Yeah, no, it really does.
Wise words.
Very wise. And I mean, I can say, I was definitely a different person in my 20s.
Oh yeah.
Especially, early 20s and stuff like that. Like, definitely, you change, Once your brain starts developing or is finished developing when you're 25, things are different.
Yeah,
So-
but I mean, just our own life experiences and stuff that we go through is gonna, change us as people.
Absolutely. What do we got next? I got dropped my dang remote for this. Grab it
Yeah,
out
so
of
this is, something small. Obviously, we know the Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom is coming out pretty quickly. But as far as pre-orders, GameStop just announced some of the stuff that they were doing for their pre-orders. Essentially, obviously, it's nothing big, but they say a large fabric poster.
Yeah.
As a
Saw
essentially
that.
pre-order bonus. If you're still into pre-ordering, or if you still go to GameStop, at least where I live, GameStop and Walmart are the only two options. So I'd rather go to GameStop than Walmart personally.
I'm going to go pre-order mine there because of that, but
Did you
They got-
guys see the other bonus that was just announced today?
in Japan,
No.
the
here
earbuds. Oh, no, that's
at Best Buy for Zelda.
no, I did not
Oh
see.
no, I didn't hear about
It's,
that.
it's an acrylic set, like the
Like the
acrylic
Sonic
figures
one?
and background. Yeah, like the Sonic one. Exactly.
have
like Sonic.
about 50 of those. I got to do some of these giveaways because GameStop
Oh,
gives me
nice.
all of their stuff that doesn't give, yeah.
That was a good pre-order bonus.
It was
I
really
have
cool.
one too.
Really cool.
Yeah, so I have mine pre-ordered at Best Buy. I already had it pre-ordered there, but when that was announced, I canceled my order today and put in a new one, only because in the past, when I've had games pre-ordered at Best Buy and then a pre-order bonus is announced, Best Buy has dropped the ball, even though they're supposed to still give it to me.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh no, you didn't pre-order it in the window." I'm like, "Yeah, because I did it before
Yeah,
everybody.
I've
You're
had
supposed to still give it to me."
I've had so many things canceled here recently. That the NES Nintendo World Championships, that one upset me pretty bad. 6 days later, I ended up finding one. Went to all those stores. I probably spent 2 hours of my day just trying to find this game. But that acrylic stand looks really cool, like better than the
Oh, yeah.
Sonic one.
Right? Yeah. So I was like, yeah, I definitely got to get that. But
I gotta do that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's at least for the GameStop, because it's all I've got locally here. But there's plenty of times where they'll do pre-order bonuses, but they don't, whatever they're allocated for the store only sells X amount of pre-orders, and if I go buy that game like that day it comes out, at least the guy that runs it's like, oh, we've got extra, pre-order bonuses, and they'll just give them out with games
Yeah.
and stuff like that, which I think
Mine
is
does that
also neat.
too. Yeah.
Oh,
but
that's nice.
Yeah, I just want to say the dimensions for this, what they say, a fabric poster, it's 18 inches by 24 inches for the GameStop fabric
It's
poster.
got some
essentially.
size. I'm not gonna lie, I want both of them because I'm such a big
Yeah.
Zelda fan. I really legitimately want both of them. It's gonna be a tough one to. I don't know. The acrylic stand's pretty cool, but it's small.
Yeah. I
don't
mean,
know.
it's neat getting pre-order bonuses as well as, different stores doing different things to, at the very least, more than
Yeah.
likely encourage pre-orders.
Yeah, definitely. The fabric poster is cool too. It looks like this is my Nintendo Store UK is doing a Zelda keyring and a wall scroll. So you get a wall scroll and a keychain. It looks like that's cool.
Oh, yeah.
But I saw earbuds or something. Zelda earbuds went up on. I think it's
I think I
Was
missed
it-
that.
Nintendo on. Hold on. Might have went up for points to get with points. I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up, but there's some stuff.
Yeah.
It
Do you
came
plan on playing this game the day it comes out? I assume you do.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh.
Yeah, I pre-ordered it for store pickup, so I can, like, I'm not gonna wait on the mailman to deliver it
Oh, yeah.
at 5 in the afternoon or the next day or the following day, because I've already seen that play out over the years. So
Yeah.
yeah, I pre-order for store pickup, so I'll be there, ready to get to play, man. No doubt.
I'm very excited about this game.
Oh,
Very-
yeah.
So what I
mean-
was talking about were Zelda wireless earbuds that went up on Nintendo UK, and it's also available in Ireland apparently. So there's
Yeah,
3
so it was,
collars.
I believe I'm reading this right. 30, since it's usually like 35 euros or 30. I don't think it's pounds.
They
I
look.
can't. I don't remember what the right symbol is for European currency.
I don't know either. They look like cheap like Temu wireless earbuds with the Zelda logo
Right.
on it.
Probably what
Probably
it is. One of those. They just plastered it on a brand that already exists.
That's what it looks like, but it's kind of neat. But like at the same time, I don't know. I know a couple Zelda collectors that'll get all three though, because they're different colors.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll go zoom through the last thing here. We got Nintendo Switch. This is the last of the small news. What is it? Oh, Nintendo Switch reaches major sales milestone. So this is talking about whether it's going to surpass the PS2.
Yeah.
Before we check this out, do you guys think it will?
It'll be close. So they came out and said it's officially, they sold over 143 million units worldwide on this. Apparently, it's become the top-selling system in Japan, surpassing the DS and the Game Boy. Japan globally, but I think it's close. Obviously, we're expecting whatever the Switch sequel is going to be next year. It's kind of like the going rate, but I mean, it's closing in on it's almost to be within 10 million units. So I think it's definitely doable.
Yeah, I think Nintendo still has some tools, right, to use here. Obviously, we got some great games coming out. They've said that they plan to support Switch for at least a couple years after Switch 2. And if you think about it, guys, like the Switch came out in March 2017.
Yeah.
And we're about to enter the holiday season here shortly of 2024. So if you were born in 2017, you might be getting your first video game console, which a Nintendo Switch would be a great, obviously, console to get.
Yeah.
Nintendo's great for kids. So it's like you're of the age now. I mean, you're past the age. I see kids gaming at 4, 5, 6 years old. I gamed when I was 3, for God's sake. So sure enough, you start gaming, and it's opened up to a whole new demographic, right?
Yep.
It's not just us. It's kids playing for the first time. They have the games for it. Obviously, you guys, I'm sure, going to touch on those sales numbers, but it's like the amount of software they're selling is absolutely insane. So yeah, I think as long as they continue to support it, which again, they've said they will, I think when they announce Switch 2 and talk about backwards compatibility,
I
think parents will be more likely to say, okay, we're going to get you a Switch 1, see how you like it, see how you treat it. Okay. If this thing breaks, I'm not buying you a Switch 2. Like if you don't take care of it properly, right? If you're dropping it everywhere and treating it like crap, I'm not going to go buy you something more expensive. We all know how that works. And I think we'll see that. But one of the biggest tools they have is the price drop.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Right? Outside of the bundles, because we know there's going to be holiday bundles this year, but it's the price drop. And I think when Switch 2 gets announced, I almost feel like it's going to be in tandem that they will announce a price drop for Switch 1. And I think that could really, really help. I mean, depending on how aggressive they are, that could really help them beat out the PS2.
I mean, that'd be good marketing in general.
Right? Yeah, like, hey, have no fear of buying Switch 1 because Switch 2 is coming out. It's backwards compatible. It's a low price. Buy it for your kids for the birthdays, for the holidays, and see if they like video games, right? Like, especially if it's a low price buy-in when all the other consoles are a couple $100 more.
Yeah.
The Xbox, PlayStation. It's like you can get your kid a current gen console for however much. I mean, Switch Lites, as of late, I've seen them on Amazon for $159.
Yep, I have too.
And there's been nothing official, you guys know, but imagine if Switch Lite's $99. Why not? I mean, it's a great number.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, yeah.
I think so.
I mean, cheaper.
This is always a time where, people that maybe can't afford a full price system, grab the console. That was me with consoles until I was probably, whenever the 64 came out, we got that, but it was still like, I think a year after it came out. So, but that was me. I always had hand-me-down systems, as a young kid. So, It's possible. I thought for sure. I said a couple of times, yeah, this is going to happen. Now I'm like, I'm not 100% sure if it'll happen because it doesn't seem like a lot of units, but it kind of is. And I feel like most houses have at least one Switch in it, right? Some people's have multiple Switches in it. So it's possible. The world's big. So I definitely won't say it's not possible. But I'm a little, I don't know for sure because the thing that the PS2 had a one-up on was people were buying it just because it was a cheaper DVD player. At the time, like that was the way to do it. Blu-ray when the PS3 came out, my God, Blu-ray players were crazy expensive. The PS3 was expensive when it came out, but a lot of people still, ended up going that route. And when it got cheaper, it was easier. It was cheaper, They came out with the slim model and stuff. So I don't know. It's definitely possible, but the Switch doesn't play your movies. Not that anybody's really buying physical movies anymore anyway, but
I think that just shows how impressive it is. People aren't buying it as a DVD player. They're buying it to actually play games.
It's impressive for sure.
Plus, I guess we've got some more special editions coming, like with the Zelda game that comes out in September.
Yeah.
They're doing a special for the Lite, which I think will definitely help boost sales as well.
And I have that pre-ordered. I'm not going to open it. It's literally a collector's item that I'm going to collect. I'm going to keep.
I think, I'm going to
I think a lot of people are, right? From what I've gathered. And obviously these sales numbers, I looked at this earlier when I looked at the sales numbers this morning, and I looked to see when the pre-orders went up for the Zelda Switch Lite, and they weren't up yet. So I will say, I don't know what that number is going to be, but these sales numbers definitely don't include the Switch Lite Zelda pre-order. So that is a boost. I expect that to actually
be a significant boost. Yeah. I'm surprised that they haven't done a few more they've done, I guess you wouldn't call those Animal Crossing ones are like nothing. Nobody was going out and buying. All it had was like a stamp on it, right?
It's right behind me. To the right of my shoulder there.
Oh, I have that one. No, the Switch Lights. The Switch Lights.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they had like a little stamp on them.
Lady.
No, I have that too over here, and that's the Switch I'm going to use for my purposes later on, I think, to keep disconnected from the internet.
But I think by the end of the year, get to the holiday season, at the very least, it'll be under 10 million units. As far as like surpassing or catching up to the PS2.
Yeah, and we got to remember, like, I think people kind of forget this, is that the PS2 was still being sold for many years.
Many years.
Oh, yeah.
Many years.
Really long life.
We had a 2014 sports game came out for it.
It was well over a decade that console was supported.
Yeah, it was supported for over a decade. So the thing is that it may not look like Nintendo has a chance to do it, or that the window is pretty small right now, but where are they going to be at in like 2, 3, 4 years if they're still selling it and they've discounted it? It's like you discount it,
because even
I don't
when
know
they
how
decide,
you can't.
Yeah, even when they decide to stop, they still have X amount of inventory that they want to get rid of and sell.
Yeah,
because I'm pretty sure like even when like PS4 and the Xbox One came out, like last gen consoles, they were still around. People were still buying them because at that point they're super dirt cheap, $100, or even if you buy it, refurbished under $100, that's extremely cheap for a game console. Especially if you're like, this new console came out, but there's no library for it. There's no immediate need to jump to the next best thing.
That just happened with the PS5 and PS4. You guys remember the
Mm-hmm.
PS5? No one could buy it, and then Sony had a problem stocking PS4s because they were selling out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it was
like everything.
it was wild.
Everything that came out for it was backwards compatible. Like the only major upscale was its SSD, because everything's backwards compatible. So it's got to be designed for PS4 and PS5.
Yeah.
Right, which is what could benefit Switch now, with it being
Yeah.
backwards. If Switch 2, which
It's gotta be.
you gotta believe. I mean, I would put money on it that it's going to be backwards compatible, but they'll have that same benefit too, with selling more Switches.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Coffee said, my friend paid $900 for a DVD player when they first came out. I remember seeing the Blu-ray players when they came out. There was one that was $700 at my Walmart. Just a straight up player. So, I mean, that it was still cheaper to get a PS3 then, when they first came out. There's a lot that could be factored into this to where it could still happen. I think there's definitely a possibility. Collector's editions, are always going to sell if there's something like a Zelda or Zelda. The Zelda community is pretty hardcore, so if anything sells for that, they need to do something as cool as the 3DS Zelda Shield. Do you remember that? Oh my god, one of the coolest collector's editions ever. Man, that thing is beautiful. This new one coming out is pretty cool. Not quite as cool as that one though.
No, it's not. It's definitely not as cool. It's cool, but no way on that scale. And I would like to see him do more stuff like that. But
they could, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's selling, so who cares? All right, so we're gonna jump into the topics. So Steve, what's your thoughts on? We briefly kind of talked about this a little bit. The MIG switch, unlock switch, all of that jazz.
Yeah, so we did briefly talk about this, and I got a little, I guess, story to share about it. So one of my good friends, we used to work together in mortgage, still a good friend of mine, and I'm sure like you guys, I'm the guy that all the friends and family reach out to when they have questions about video games.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been like that my whole life, not just since I decided to do this on YouTube, right? And so nothing's changed. He reached out to me regarding buying a Switch OLED, but he said he wants to mod it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he didn't own a Switch. He's always thought about buying a Switch. And I think he saw probably something on YouTube about the Switch being easier to mod now. And disclaimer, like he's never modded a console before, but he's very good with tech, confident enough to give it a shot, right? So he asked what I knew about the MIG switch, the unlock switch. And of course, I've seen the videos on YouTube about the MIG switch, about people not getting the dumper that they were supposed to get. And so I knew I was going to tell him, no, don't do the MIG switch. And after doing some research, we ended up settling on the Pico Fly. And long story short, he successfully did the mod. He did the soldering, which again, it's not something that he's done before, but he sent me some pictures. He's got it up and running. Everything's good to go. So yeah, there it is, the MIG switch. So he asked me about it, and that's what I told him to go with Pico Fly. And of course, he asked me if I have my Switch modded. And I will say, guys, whether you mod a Switch or you mod your systems or you don't, no judgment here whatsoever.
Nope.
I let him know that typically I don't mod my console until it's no longer supported, right?
Mm-hmm.
For instance, when the 3DS was no longer supported, when that went down, the shop's down, it's literally you can't go online with the thing. Yeah, I modded mine immediately, and I love it.
Yeah,
I have Virtual Boy on my 3DS. I have the Virtual Boy mod.
I know, me too.
It's rad. Like it's really cool.
Yeah.
It's a great way to experience it, right? Without going blind or injuring my old eyes.
Giant headache.
Yeah. So I think modding is honestly, it's a lot of fun. I've played so many cool games that you would only be able to play if you've done some modding, ROM hacks, some homebrew games. I mean, I've done them recently on my channel. Like I did a video playing the original Metroid on NES, port it to Super Nintendo with the MSU1 chip. So it's got CD quality sound. It's got the remastered soundtrack, got Zero Mission, and it has the Famicom Disk System soundtrack as well as the NES.
That's
just
awesome.
Cool. Yeah, there's no slowdown in the game. And it's funny because I'm playing Nintendo World Championship, right? And I was playing the Metroid missions. And I'm fighting Kraid. And there was so much slowdown. And I'm like, this is crazy because I literally just played this game less than 2 weeks ago. I
Mhm.
beat it. The Metroid Super Nintendo port, unofficial port, zero slowdown there. Zero,
Crazy.
none. Yeah, and I'm like, this is why I really appreciate
Yeah.
that scene, the homebrew scene, the modding, the hacking, the ROMs.
All of
I
it. Yeah.
appreciate it. So that's kind of my stance on it. And as far as the MIG switch, for its intention, it's I say for its main intention, but for its stated intention, I think it's great to
Sure.
be able for game preservation, right? Uh, I presume most people are not buying it for that, and that's
Sure.
okay. Again, that's okay. Like Brandon, you have one, and you bought
Mhm.
it for game preservation.
Yeah, I just want to be able to
And
back up my saves and stuff. All the hours I got in Pokemon and Zelda. Like, I want to be able to keep that. Who knows what happens to these carts in 10 years? Whether they lose data, we don't know.
we don't know.
So
Yeah, we don't know. So I think it's a great product, and I'm glad it exists. And overall, I respect that whole scene a lot.
awesome. Yeah. Yeah, we talked about it pretty extensively. Like, we were waiting on the kind of lead up to UnlockSwitch coming out. The thing that sucks is, I've stated before, I didn't get my dumper for the Switch, so I now have the one that came with the. I'll show it to you for people watching the video. But it's just like there's a cable in here too. It's pretty neat. And it just dropped.
Yeah,
it.
that's cool.
But yeah, it's pretty neat. But now I can use this for that, and I still haven't done that yet. I just need to get around to it. But the UnlockSwitch the software is not out for it yet, so it's essentially a brick. So the only thing I can do right now is use that dumper to test out the MIG switch now, which I need to do. It takes up a lot of time. Those EverDrives we talked about are great.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of time to find the right set, make sure it works, whatever.
Yeah.
Get those
mine
put
right
together.
here.
That's beautiful. I love that. Oh, that's cool. You got Stone Age Gamer. Sweet.
Yeah, it's got Stone Age Gamer on there. It's got Akari, and it's got Crix.
Yeah, so
Criz certified.
that's cool. I like that Stone Age does their own labels. They're actually in Ohio. I went out there and visited them last year and checked out their shop and how they do it. It's pretty rad.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah, it's neat stuff. So next we got I guess we kind of talked about it maybe just a tad, but not necessarily the specs. So talking about the Switch 2 specs, what are you guys sort of expecting for that? We've touched on it before, Mark. There's been stuff that's came since, and we got some new people anyway. So, what do you guys think specs wise?
I mean, I'm excited about the specs.
Me too.
From the rumored specs, right, that we've heard. And specifically, I'm talking about the 12 gigabytes of RAM just right off the bat.
Oh yeah.
That is very exciting. And like if we were to compare it, of course, to say like the Series S.
Mm-hmm.
We know the Series S has 10 gigs of RAM. I looked it up earlier to see how much the operating system is using. And it's using 2.5 gigs to run the operating system. So it's got 7.5 gigs of usable RAM. If the Switch 2 does indeed have 12 gigs of RAM, it's not going to use 2.5 gigs for the operating system.
Right.
It's not gonna be that much. You guys know what the Switch operating system looks like, and you know what the Xbox One looks like.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff going on the Xbox One. It's very busy.
Yeah.
It's cool. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's great.
Yeah.
But you could tell that the Switch, even if they improve the OS, which we know they're going to, they have to, please, especially the
It's
eShop.
pretty rough right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but say they use, I don't know, 1 or 2 gigs, right? Just say they use that much. Then the Switch 2 would be using 10 gigs of RAM.
Mm-hmm.
It would have 10 usable gigs. Well, the Series S has 7.5. And we haven't even touched yet on the DLSS.
Yeah.
So I just from that point of view, right, that angle, it's pretty exciting because we know the kind of technical wizardry that Nintendo and some of its closer partners, like for instance, Retro Studio, Monolith, Soft, what they can pull off,
Mm-hmm.
right? And not only that, but we've seen some crazy
Ports.
third-party ports.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the DLSS is supposed to really help with the ports to
Oh yeah.
make the porting process much easier as far as getting your frame rate up and the resolutions improved. And from what I've gathered, the DLSS is the 3.5,
Which is
that's
good.
what you want. Yeah, it's got the frame generation, it's got the super resolution, and it's got ray reconstruction. It, if there's ray tracing or not, if there is, great. If there isn't, that's fine. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is going to be a huge jump in graphical fidelity for a Nintendo system. Like, from the Switch to the Switch 2, this would be really a massive jump. I mean, it's not even like NES to Super NES. And I know it's compared to that a lot, and it's an easy comparison to make. And I just think it's going to be even greater than that based on these rumored specs. So I'm very excited. I have some interesting ideas, I guess you could say, about how Nintendo could use the DLSS. I don't know how possible this is. Let me know your guys' thoughts as well. But man, if you really, and I'm speaking about this from experience actually, if you can take games on the NSO, like 64 games and 64, and apply DLSS to these games, like we've seen on PC. Like, I have Zelda 64, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask on my PC with DLSS.
How dare you?
Applied. And dude, I can run Zelda on with my graphics card at 120 frames per second, no problem. And even just playing it though, honestly, at 60 frames with the DLSS on and the resolution boosted, cannot tell you how good it looks and plays. Imagine if we got that.
Ray tracing Mario, imagine.
Well, it's interesting to think, because man, if you could play Zelda or all these N64 games, I have the Mario 64 PC port that runs at 60 frames in 4K. And it's like, if we could get that on the Switch too, and you could only get it through NSO, dude,
that would be
so
phenomenal.
Easy money for Nintendo. So I'd like to see that, and I would love to see DLSS applied to some of these Switch games for Switch 2. Like, you guys probably know that in Paper Mario, the Thousand Year Doors code, and its source code is 4K resolution.
Yep.
So you got to ask, why? Why is that in there? And all I can think is that, well, it was probably planned as a release for Switch 2 or a dual release at that. And I got to hope that they have some sort of upgrade path possibly available that they're going to be doing to where they can resell some of these games, or obviously like we've seen Sony and Xbox do, where they charge $10. I think that would be great.
I
what
think
do you
so
guys
too.
think?
No, I'm with you. So I've done some of the PC stuff with the retro games, and it's pretty rad. I think here's what I'm like imagining. What the heck would, say, take Super Mario Odyssey? What would that look like on the Switch if you're running 4K or 1080p 120 frames per second, or with the ray tracing? How insane would that be to see Mario like that in that much detail? And how does that apply to all these Nintendo series? Like, one thing I keep thinking about is Metroid Prime 4, the trailer that we've seen. That game, it looks, and obviously Metroid Prime Remaster looks great. It's like almost a remake. That's the way I look at it. Almost. It looks great, but the trailer looks just like the remaster. So it makes me wonder, like, what? Because I think it could be a dual release. I think Metroid Prime 4 has a possibility of being a dual release. We did a video on it. I think it's possible. It's just, I don't know what to expect, because I was looking at one of the rumors that we reported on a while ago, said that it had 8 gigabytes of RAM, DDR5 RAM. There's a few reports here that I pulled up, so they're kind of conflicting. It's a little all over the place. It's hard to say exactly what this console is going to be. Mark, what do you think?
I'm not sure.
Great answer.
No, I mean, a lot of it you kind of already touched on. Like, I mean, as far as like whatever it's going to be when it comes to the Switch 2 or whatever it ends up actually being, like, the one thing that I really care about more than anything else as it stands right now is the internal memory. I think is atrocious on the Switch.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
I think 256 should be like the standard across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even with the cartridge, you eat up that memory so fast. And
You
a lot
do.
of people, regardless of what we might think, a lot of people do digital only, and that internal memory is just not good.
My Switch is full right now.
external.
I have a 1 terabyte SD
Yeah.
card, and it's full.
Same.
So,
And full. Yep.
yeah. I'm with you on that. I'm with you
Then
totally on that.
I think the memory is far cheaper now than it was in 2017 when the Switch came out. There's no reason they couldn't get 256 on something, even the size of the Switch, realistically, with how small internal memory an SSD is, like how much memory you can get on something extremely small. I mean, you just look at a lot of if you build a PC, look at a lot of the M2 chips for SSD, how big they are and how much memory you could realistically store on them. I think it needs, as far as like internal memory, and I'm sure it would affect the RAM as well. SSD should be the standard for the Switch 2.
I
think
agree.
as far as just how the games would run, like it would help get rid of a lot of the lag as well. Just being able to process the memory faster.
I agree, and earlier today I was revisiting an older rumor. I was actually listening to the Nate the Hate podcast. That was one of them from last year, but in regards to Gamescom, right? And I was just trying to make sure that I still remembered everything as was said. Just hearing it again, right? Hearing him and Modern Vintage Gamer talking about the Breath of the Wild, right? Running at Gamescom behind closed doors, running at 4K, natively 60 frames per second, and just how fluid and flawless everything ran, and how it was running the the Matrix 5 demo, and how you couldn't even tell that it was a Switch 2. Like, it looked like the same thing that we saw on the PS5. And I have the demo. I tested it out on the PS5 when it came out. Like, it's really cool. And to think that a handheld could do that is absolutely it's really quite wild, and it's pretty exciting just to think that that's something we could have portably.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane. The other thing is, like, we've got these beefy freaking PC handhelds coming out. I mean, these things are absolutely insane, and the Switch has got to compete with that. The Switch 2. It has to at least compete. It's got to be on par with one of the better ones out there, which we'll just say the new Asus ROG Ally that came out, the X. It's got to at least be on par with that. It has to be. It's got to be, because those are basically, I mean, we'll say like PS4 Pro level, right? Would you say that? Like, that's where the Asus ROG Ally X is at. I mean, that's just an improved version of the first Asus ROG, but we are getting the second one. We've seen some rumors about that. We reported on that, and it sounds like that's going to be even beefier. So they're doing crazy things with those. It's got to at least be on par with some of those. It's not necessarily competing with that market per se. It's competing with the handheld market, but it's not necessarily competing with the PC. Do you know what I'm saying? It's competing with being a handheld, but it's not really competing with that side of things because it is PC
Yeah.
related. So you're getting your Steam and your Xbox and all that jazz. And I'm still of the mindset that Xbox is doing handheld. I wholeheartedly believe that. I mean, there's been too much that's come out, and that's what I think. So it's got to be
I do too.
competing, you know?
Yeah. What I ultimately think here is that with the Switch 2 specs, again, we don't know what they're going to be, right?
Yeah.
For sure. Because they're rumors.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're going based off rumors. We're speculating. But I think bottom line is that it's going to be powerful enough that third parties are going to have no problem porting their PS4 or Xbox Series S games to the Switch 2. Do I expect Grand Theft Auto 6 to be running on Switch 2? No. If it does that, that'd be
impressive.
Extremely impressive. Just me not even knowing, obviously none of us, about what the specs are. If it could, great. But I'm not expecting that. I am expecting to get all the great games from last generation, from the PS4, Xbox One generation, and I'm expecting Series S games to be able to come to the Switch. And I think that's enough. I really do. I think that would be damn good. I thought about games like Red Dead Redemption 2, which excellent game. But what's funny is there's no performance patch or anything for current gen. It still runs at 30 frames per second. And I could see Red Dead 2 coming to Switch 2. Because we have Red Dead 1 now. I could see them bringing that over for Switch and that running at 60 frames per second because it's a new game for Switch. Like, they're not patching Red Dead on PS4 and Xbox Series to run on Series S, X, and PS5 at 60. But because they're bringing it brand new to Switch, I could see that running at 60. So if we get stuff like that, I think people would be really happy. But I'm expecting a lot. Like, I'm expecting Visions of Mana to be there. I'm expecting Elden Ring to be on Switch too. Because why not?
I mean, the DLSS is going to really play a part in that too. Yeah, 100%.
No, but I'd expect whatever the Switch 2 to be, at the very least, obviously, I doubt we'd actually get these ports, but it'd be able to play like a Ghost of Tsushima, a Horizon Zero Dawn, a Bloodborne, the Final Fantasy VII Remake, because these are technically last-gen games as far as the PlayStation goes.
Yeah.
Like, I would expect it to have no problem playing these games for the most part. Memory might be an issue with some of these games, as for how big some of them can actually get, but as far as like what the hardware can actually handle, I'm making the assumption that it, in theory, could play everything from the PS4 to the Xbox One library, no problem at all.
Yep. Yeah, and if it can do that, I think that's more than enough. And obviously, we're gonna see whatever Nintendo and Retro, like we said, Monolith Soft, what kind of wizardry they can pull off using this DLSS. And it's just going to be interesting to see some of these major third parties build games from the ground up for Switch with DLSS in mind. Because typically DLSS is used to help port games, right?
Yeah.
And it's to help make that transition. It's not to really like build a game from scratch using that as one of your main tools. So we might see some crazy stuff. We really might. Either way, it's got me excited.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
I'm excited either way because the game that I originally bought the Switch for, expecting it to be on the Switch successor, which is Metroid Prime 4, obviously.
Yeah. I know. I'm with you on that. So are you guys on the cross-gen train? Are you guys both there?
I'm not really set there, but I think it's a possibility. I mean,
or at least like it comes out on Switch and there's maybe an enhanced version on Switch too.
Yeah, I'm kind of likely with a lot of games for the most part. most games that probably come out first year are going to be cross-gen unless it's specifically there to sell the system at launch.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, obviously we don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards Metroid Prime 4 more than likely being there at launch. Don't know if you would consider that a system seller. Obviously, we're not expecting a Zelda game, but probably expecting, just because of how long it's been, with a mainline Mario game is probably going to be a system seller. But I mean, kind of like with the Switch and most consoles at launch, it's not going to be a lot of games there. So,
you know, what I wonder though is, because we saw that trailer and it looks so much like Metroid Prime Remastered, is like, how can it not be on Switch 1? Is what I kind of think. That's the only thing that kind of throws me for a loop, because it's like, this definitely is not Switch 2 that we're seeing right here. This is most certainly on the scale of Metroid Prime Remastered. So that's the only thing that's like, how can this not be coming to Switch 1 as well? Because we just saw footage that is most certainly Switch 1.
I think it has to.
I think it has to.
From a sales aspect, guys, because you both know Metroid, regardless of the praise and the 9.8 out of 10 that it gets,
it doesn't sell.
Amazing review. It doesn't sell. It doesn't, and it's a beloved franchise for a lot of us, like longtime hardcore gamers, right?
Yeah,
I'm sure all three of us love it. I'm sure people in chat love it, and it's unfortunate, but that's where it's at. And I know we're going to touch on this probably a little bit later, but I think they need to sell Metroid to the 143 million Switch owners, as well as Switch 2, in order to
make their money back and
make the money back and try and make something of Metroid.
Yeah.
Right? Because I kind of have an idea of how it's all going to go down, or at least what would be logical. And that's obviously they need to get Prime 2 and 3 out the door before 4. You have to build it. You have to let other people play these games, because
you got to build the franchise up.
Yeah.
I mean, the story is there as well. It's a continuing story that builds up through those 3 games. Even if they're, for the most part, standalone on their own, it's a story that moves forward, especially with 3.
Yeah, it's like any movies, man. Like, I'm not going to ask you to watch Rogue One and then show you Phantom Menace, right? Or I'm not going to ask you to watch movies out of order.
Even though we did with Star Wars,
Yeah, I know. I thought about that as I'm saying. It's like, well, they were out of order, Steve. But you know what I'm saying? Like, people don't like to do that. And that's why you see these long-running video game series, like the Yakuza series.
Yeah.
Everyone's always like, where do I start, dude? Like,
it's
I start at, Yakuza, Kiwami, Like a Dragon, Zero. There's so many. Dragon Quest. Where do I start? What's a good entry point? Final Fantasy. The list goes on. Like, I thought it was just going to be one. It's Final Fantasy. I thought this was the final one. It's what everyone always used to say. And it's like, no, people don't know where to jump in. And so when you only got 4 Metroid Prime games here. You already have 2 that are done. It's like, when did Echoes come out? 2004?
Right around. It's only like 2-3 years later.
Yep.
Because they were both GameCube games.
Yeah, this is 20 years ago. We remember it.
Yeah.
But the kids,
they don't. No.
They don't. A lot of the Switch owners, they don't know. They don't know about Metroid.
Right.
The Blue Ocean strategy, they don't know about Metroid. So you got to re-release these games and really build it up appropriately if you want Metroid to reach into a new stratosphere and be part of the big 3. Because right now it's still a big 2, right? It's Mario and it's Zelda, and then closely nearby is Animal Crossing, and obviously there's Mario Kart, which is huge, but Metroid is not on that level of sales. It is on review scores, but not on sales.
Yeah, because I think it's Dread sold the most, and it barely broke 3 million in sales, and it's the best selling by far. Which is kind of, I know me and Brandon talked about it. I think Prime 4 being one of the launch titles on the Switch 2 would be a really big boost as far as sales, because you're gonna have a limited library. Obviously, it should be a cross-gen, but hey, if you're one of those people that are going to be buying it early on or that at the first year of its life cycle, you have a handful of games. I think a Metroid series would benefit from both sales and exposing it to more people by being one of those few games on a new console at launch. Plus, it adds a variety because say you have like a Mario, you have Metroid, and then two other whatever random, I don't want to say shovelware type games, but that's kind of what you'd expect at a launch or something like that.
Yeah, your expected launch titles.
Yeah, I just think it would benefit as far as options for players.
Yeah.
And just general sales, ideally for Metroid.
Yeah, I think that plays a part into it. Early adopters, right? They're limited on what they can pick, so they have to play this big, Nintendo game. I think that's one thing, but yeah, you definitely got to play a hand in that massive install base already there for the Switch because the series doesn't sell. 3 million for a 2D game. What was it like? Barely broke 1 million for Metroid Prime Remaster, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but I mean, like it's just kind of insane. And then you look at the sales of the old games, like, oh, it's abysmal, and it's depressing because like they're so good. It's depressing. But Nintendo has never pushed Metroid ever either. I don't remember being pushed Metroid as a kid. Everything else seems like, but I don't remember the push for Metroid.
Super Metroid had a real push for Super Nintendo, but that came out in 94, right?
Yeah.
But I remember the commercials. I remember the marketing blitz. I remember getting my Nintendo Power in the mail with Super Metroid on the cover. The commercials were everywhere, and it was very exciting because we had all grown up, of course, playing the original Metroid, and it was so much better. It was truly super. Like it lived up to the name.
Amazing.
And it was really exciting. And I do remember Metroid Prime having a really cool commercial, the live action one. And it had a good marketing push. But I feel like after Prime 1, I don't really recall much of a push for 2, 3, trilogy on the Wii.
Yeah.
We had Metroid Other M.
Samus Returns. I don't remember anything for that.
Yeah.
I think part
of it, at least for Prime 1 and 2, is it's on the GameCube, and then by the time you get to Echoes, Halo on the Xbox is really taken off. So it's on not a good selling console as far as a market that's extremely competitive with other games that are just doing it better.
Oh,
Yeah.
God,
But I mean, I still think it's crazy because the original Metroid is the third best-selling Metroid game.
Insane.
And the only other two games that surpass it in sales is Dread and the first Prime game.
Yeah.
As far as good as like Super Metroid is, the original game on the SNES sold a little over 1 million more copies than Super Metroid.
That's
Crazy.
the thing, guys. Like that's what's hard about this is, I know one of our subjects is, right? Do you think Metroid matters as much as any other series to Nintendo? And my answer is that I think it matters to Nintendo, but they need to find a way to make it matter to gamers. And again, of course, Metroid matters to us and the people listening to the podcast, but we are the minority. The average Switch owner either doesn't know or is not interested in Metroid. And it's the marketing team's job to finally figure out a way to make the mainstream Switch audience care about Metroid if it's ever going to grow and expand on the scale of Mario and Zelda. So I think Nintendo wants Metroid to enter its next growth phase to where it can become a 10 million seller. I think that's the mark we're looking for. And I do expect Nintendo to continue to release 2D Metroids like Dread. I think they kind of have to now because the sales dictate it, and they do have shareholders. And we said it earlier, I don't think their shareholders make the decisions at all. But I do think Nintendo does listen, and the logical approach is actually to continue to make 2D Metroids because they do sell well, and because maybe those 2D Metroids can help propel your main series, which is the Prime series, similar to what they're doing with Zelda. We had the Link's Awakening remake. Now we have Zelda Echoes. Those are both 2D top-down Zeldas. And those games do help support and grow the flagship Zelda titles,
Yeah.
which of course are the 3D open world Zeldas. So I think they have a game plan. They just need to go out and execute it.
Yeah.
Because
Like
the
the other-
review scores,
they're good.
exactly. So what's the only thing that went wrong here? It's the marketing. They gotta give people reasons to get excited about Metroid, and only the hardcore are, unfortunately.
That, and I think the other problem is there's massive gaps in a lot of these games. I mean, it wasn't a big
Totally.
gap. It was only 3 years, but you have one bad game and still another M, and then the whole franchise just go on ice for the better part of a decade. Or
Yeah.
it's been over a decade because that game came out in 2010. We had some remakes come out between them, but not a brand new game until Dread 11 years later, which is crazy. I think that hurt sales as well.
It did, and we also went from Super Nintendo to then GameCube. Completely skipped
yeah.
64.
Yeah.
That's another
And-
what? 7-year gap.
There was definitely a Metroid
7, 8
64
years.
in the works. So
It was.
yeah. That's a
Yeah,
bummer.
that-
I forgot about that. Yeah.
I mean, I guess it would have been exciting because my bad, it was an 8-year gap between Super Metroid and Prime 1 and Fusion that both came out the same year, a 2D and a 3D. Which
Yeah, I remember. It was cool.
I can't remember which, because Fusion and Prime were the first 2 games I played. I can't remember which one I actually played first. It's just been too long. But I do remember like the first time playing Metroid Prime on the GameCube. Oh, at the time, that game blew my mind when I first saw it. And that's really
Yeah.
probably when I fell in love with that game, or the whole series as a whole.
It was, yeah, I mean, that was a mind-blowing jump for the series. I mean, going 2D, I think it was for every one of those, Zelda,
It's so long,
Mario. For me, is when I played Ocarina of Time. That was, I mean, I guess Mario 64, technically, because I had that, holy crap, this is insane moment. But once I played Ocarina of Time, man, it just changed everything for me. But Metroid was a big one, too. That was crazy. See it that detailed, where you're starting to get the detail in there and the textures and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens, but I think we got to get Metroid 2 and 3 remastered out. I know that.
Yeah, I think
They
that's what I'm
do.
hoping for.
Yeah, I would expect they get announced. Like, I would not be surprised if 2 gets positioned somewhere in this calendar year.
I feel like it has to, right? We're not getting a dual pack
feel
with
like it
2 and
has to.
3.
I don't
No,
know.
I don't
hear a lot
expect a double pack, but
No.
maybe.
I hear some people talk about it mainly just because of the time frame. If you expect Prime 4 to come out next year, more than likely it's just lining up with the next Switch successor, which we expect to get announced in September's director, or roughly that time frame.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's going to be a big enough window for them to have their own separate release at this point. From what I've seen, and obviously it's all speculation, that they get packaged together, and while there's an upscale, it's not to the degree that you had with
Yes.
Prime 1. It's more of we're getting these games out as a minor upgrade, but we're going to double them together. Less money, but essentially they're out there to play. As far as bridging the gap leading up to Prime 4.
Yeah.
That's what
It's
I
kinda-
heard.
They
too.
should have just did another trilogy, I feel like. I mean, that's what we thought forever. Why didn't you just do that? There's not, like you said, there's not enough time for a 2 and 3 separate release, but
I guess
I
the
don't
idea
know.
is with the first one, it's like, hey, we're putting it's like a test of the new engine, reinvigorate a few years out, bring back in new interest, and kind of like trickle it out essentially.
I don't
is
like
how I would
that.
guess
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I
Oh.
could see. I do see that, and how that could be beneficial, especially for
Is-
Metroid.
Yeah, because didn't they do that with the Wind Waker HD? They re-released it with an ulterior motive, as in they were testing other things as far as the engine goes for for Breath of the Wild, if I'm not mistaken. I might be
What?
misremembering or getting
Oh,
it
I
wrong.
don't
but
know
I
about
thought
that.
that game came out specifically because they wanted to test some new things on a
Maybe.
game that they feel was going to be be able to sell essentially.
I'm not sure on that, but
Well-
I could see it, but
Yeah, I think they did test out some gamepad features because
Yeah,
the
that's what I
gamepad
thought.
was supposed to play a huge role in Breath of the Wild,
yeah.
and they scrapped it
Yeah.
right at the end because they didn't want the Wii U version to be superior to the Switch version.
Yeah,
Even though I
So-
say it is.
Yeah,
yeah. So I just see it similar in that way. They want to test other things. All right, where's the interest? obviously we know we teased you like 7 years ago with this game, and we've done nothing with it since. But that's just kind of where I felt with that game. And then obviously, if we're gonna just re-release the rest, less work. But here's the other games that you really want.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, Echoes is the superior to that trilogy. But
see, I'm all three,
biased.
man. I'm all three.
I didn't care for the third game all that much, to be
I
fair.
loved it. I think the I like the motion controls for that game. I think they were spot on, but I know I'm in the majority saying that. I also think that Hunters is peak Metroid, so all right. So next we got what consoles does everybody play the most, or PC? What's everybody on the most? I'm probably Switch.
I'd say for me, PS5 and Switch would be tied. Maybe PS5 a little bit more, but Switch lately been getting some good time with that.
I play this guy a lot too.
Yeah, I got my analog pocket as well. I love that. But PS5 and Switch, I guess you could say, and then Steam and Xbox would probably be tied after that. But I thought about it, and I'm like, lately it feels like it's been more PS5, Switch, and then the Super Nintendo and Nintendo. I've been playing my analog NT and my Super NT with all of these like retrospectives I've been doing on my channel, like playing the MSU1 Super Nintendo games. And like that's been a great time. So my mainstays are PS5 and Switch, and then after that it could be anything, because I mean I'm like playing everything, man.
Yeah, it just depends.
That's what it is for me. Switch, PS5. So
yeah, I think I'm a little bit biased. My Switch is probably number 3 of the 3 main consoles that I play, and it's really only when I'm playing Nintendo games and when I get the itch for it. The second is PS5, but I really only play it for the PlayStation console exclusives for the most part. And obviously, by a mile, it's my PC. Especially once I got it upgraded, I guess 6-7 months ago or something like that.
What do you have, a 4070?
Yeah, I think that's what I ended up getting.
Nice.
That's what I got.
But I eventually I had a 1060 Ti before that. It was getting old. But I prefer anything that's like cross platform. I just prefer to play on PC. I think the hardware, it performs better on PC for a lot of games, and then for the Switch and the PS5, I play for exclusives on the consoles, and then if there is an Xbox game that I want to play, there hasn't been recently. Obviously, I can play it on PC. Either it's been ported to Steam or one of the other platforms, or you can get their Game Passes on PC as well.
Yeah, I have Game Pass Ultimate. I got it stacked for years. Back when you used to be able to get it for like a very low price.
I missed out on that.
Before Microsoft patched it, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But I'm with you on that. Like I do prefer to play actually on PC more than my actual Xbox for that reason, because the PC has better hardware.
Yeah.
It's really what it comes down to.
That and exclusives too. Like you guys know, obviously, when a game comes out on PS5 and Switch, especially these days, it's like you got to look first.
Yeah.
See how the performance is. You know, if you haven't bought the game yet, it might be a good idea. I always say to check YouTube.
Yeah.
And see if anyone's done a performance evaluation like Digital Foundry or something, and just make sure the Switch version is capable of, at least having a decent frame rate before you get 100%. That. So.
There's like series of, for me, where it's like I want to grab the Switch version of it, like things like Ease would be one. Like there's JRPGs where it feels like I have to play it on Nintendo hardware. I don't know what it is, but it's like I'm stuck to that. Plus games like that, I want to be able to play in handheld mode. I have a PlayStation Portal. It's a toss up whether it wants to work correctly or not. I'm hardwired in right next to it. Everything that you gotta do, I've deep dived, read it, and done all the things they said, and like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But
same results, man.
Yeah, it's a bummer, but
yeah, I'm actually that brings up an interesting point, because I still prefer games like for the Tales games that I need to get back into playing those. Yeah, ideally streaming, but that's been a possibility here recently. Like if I get a game, like I'll prefer to buy it on Steam, obviously, but it's all digital. That's what PC is. But if there's a game that I do want to buy physical, I'll usually buy it used because it's cheaper. But I'll buy it either on like if it's on a Switch or on one of my other consoles, so I can have it physical at the very least.
Yeah.
Even if I'm paying more than I should. Like if it's a game I like and I want it physical, I will then go buy physical on another console as well.
Well, I mean, it's like we go back and buy. Some of us do go back and buy like retro games that sometimes might be more expensive and more than we want to pay. But a lot of those JRPGs, for example, if you went back and were trying to buy all the Trails games, good freaking luck, man. Those PSP games, no thanks on the prices. Because I was going to buy all those at one point, and it's just, I've gotten to the point where I'm like pretty okay with not spending a bunch of money on retro games physically. I'll always hunt down deals, but like I'm not going to pay out $400 anymore for, I'm just not going to do it anymore. It's gotten old. It's stale for me. Some people still get excited about paying those high prices. I sure don't. So that's just me. But
yeah, I do not. All the games I have are the games that I bought when I was like in high school.
mm-hmm.
Honestly, like I have, I think 300 NES games up behind me, at least 100 Super games, but they're all really good games.
Yeah.
And it goes for all the games that I have. I didn't sell them. I didn't trade them in. Some of these games I got at Funko Land back in the day.
That's
before
awesome.
GameStop bought them, and they used to have a printout that they had, right at the cashier at the checkout. And I kid you not, there were so many games that were on this printout of used game prices.
Yeah.
Just like 49 cents,
Yeah.
79 cents.
Oh,
it was crazy.
I remember when, our Funko Land was shutting down. That was about 30 minutes from me. They had a massive sale. Boy, do I regret not buying a bunch of games at that point in time, because my God, I remember seeing like Earthbound was like, I don't know, it was so kind of expensive at the time, but not what it is now. Just like, just a bunch of stuff. And then I remember seeing Earthbound like discounted in bins, I forget what it was, but like $20 or something, like something like that. It might have been even cheaper. I don't remember, but I remember seeing Atari Jaguars discounted at my Radio Shack, TurboGrafx, Turbo Express, which is the last thing I ever paid out for because it was something I've wanted since I was a kid.
The handheld?
Yeah, I got it back here.
That's awesome. My friend that modded the Switch, he a couple years ago when we're working together, he said, Steve, do you know where I can source a Turbo Express? I'm like, I don't off the top of my head, man. I said, but we could look around. He was like in love with the Turbo Express idea.
Yeah.
And the TV tuner. There's a TV tuner that you can get for it too, right?
I got that
yours
too, yeah.
Yours looks great.
It's got the EverDrive back there.
Oh, nice, man. That's so cool. Yeah, that's a nice piece of portable hardware for sure.
Oh,
yeah, it's definitely cool. There's definitely a lot of regrets to that stuff, but you can't get held up on that. I kick myself all the time with some of those prices now, but I've gotten to the point where I just don't care. Like I'll pass over all that. I got really excited about it again during like around the end of 2020. I got kind of crazy with it, but then the prices started to spike up, early 2020, and it just went absurd prices, and I got quickly not excited about the prices anymore. So it's fun to chase video games, and I love to go game hunting and stuff like that, but you really you're not going to ever find those deals like at a used game store where they know what they have and they're there to stay in business, so they're going to sell it for what it's going for. It's just not the same. It's not what it used to be. So it's kind of
Goodwill. Goodwill doesn't have games anymore. Like they do.
They all
but
went online.
Yeah, it's like Connect Sports. Just total trash.
Yeah.
And all their games now, they either sell them online or they send them to there's one location in the US that's a video game distribution, like Goodwill.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't find them there. And so really your only chance is see if you can get lucky at a garage sale.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's the only thing you can, maybe a flea market, you find an old gentleman that doesn't know what he has type of deal where you kind of feel a little scummy about it, but you're like,
exactly. Yeah, that's the thing, is that it's just not like it used to be, and I'm happy that I have the games I have, and I didn't sell them, because I know if I did, I would want to buy them back, and I
Mhm.
see just how the retro market has expanded, and the pricing is just insane. It's like, man, I feel bad, because I know it's hard for new collectors to even try and get involved and see what some of these past games were all about. It's really expensive to buy into that when you
I
don't even know.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Nintendo and some of these companies don't give you ways to access these games legally.
I
We
know.
talked Pokemon
It's
before.
frustrating.
Like, why is Pokemon not on the eShop or Nintendo Switch Online? It's a mystery, you know? There could be a
Yeah.
lot of things, but it's like, what is going on here? People want to go back and play these games more than ever, and you don't give them a way to play the game legally. So
Yeah, no, I know I've never been one, but I know we talked about it before. It's like I didn't until we brought it up. I didn't even know that the PCFX was even a thing at one point.
yeah,
Just because it's not the retro for the most part, it's not a thing. But it's like I'm willing to hunt down these because there's an IP on it that I really want to play essentially.
yeah.
So I used to be into anime a lot more when I was definitely younger, but I'm still into it passively. But it's like, there's like a handful of Tenchi Muyo games. If you ever watched, it was on Toonami back in the day. If you ever watched it,
Yeah.
But I was like, there's the games on this on the FX. I'm like, I'm gonna buy these games in the FX for this one game so I can play it. At least say that I played it, and then be somewhat content with my life.
The problem is,
Right.
Mark, you have to remember that these are text-heavy games, and you can't play them that way. But I did show
yeah.
you the option on the PCFX. There's a mod for it to be able to play all the
No,
English
there's-
transpat.
The only
English.
option is I just need to learn Japanese.
Yeah, there's that too. But some of this is like, that's gonna.
But even
that's
if I
a lot
can't
of
read
text.
it, I just want these games. I want to
I
have
get
a
it.
piece of an IP that I really like. and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Especially how it shaped my I don't want to say childhood, but especially like late into my teens and early in my 20s and stuff like that, and just a series that I'm really into. But outside of that, I'm not into big on collecting. But it would be nice if a lot of these older games, especially on hard to come consoles or games and consoles, just ridiculously expensive. If there's just a way for them to get ported digitally.
Yep.
Legally at the very least, outside of just using emulators and pirating them illegally, essentially.
Because we're willing to pay for these games, or we are subscribed to your online.
Price.
Yeah, at a reasonable price. And they don't give us the option to pay. So
exactly my point. Yeah, if you don't give me a way to play it, an option to pay you, then I'm gonna find a way to play it. I prefer not to go that route, but I will because I want to play it. I'd rather give you money, but you guys got to figure that out. The video game industry as a whole has got to figure out game preservation.
There's a lot of old games that have just been kind of tossed to the wayside and forgotten about.
Yeah, lost to time, and they will be lost to time because when I'm gone, when you guys are gone, no one's gonna know what these games are.
Yeah,
I mean the media that they're printed on only has X amount of time. When it comes to DVDs or cartridges, like eventually the hardware is just going to stop working.
Yeah, that is true.
Yep, 100%. All right, so we're going to zoom over to the big news real quick and kind of go over all that. It's been super long on these topics, but we got one of the biggest things this week is that Bungie laid off 17% of their staff, and they have They're restructuring their development strategy. So this is 220 employees. I can't say I'm like super surprised because Bungie, again, is like one of those companies that changed once they left making Halo, essentially. But 220 employees, 17% of its workforce. And then we see that Pete Parsons is showing off his fancy multi-million-dollar car that he bought, apparently. Trying to pull that back up too, but there were reports that he was showing it off days before this announcement came out, and I have seen a bunch of stuff pop up on X about this, like people just going off. I
actually screenshot one of these tweets in case we were going to talk about.
Oh yeah.
If you want, I can read this.
Yeah,
tweet.
Absolutely.
So they said an ex-employee of Bungie who was laid off calls on Bungie CEO Pete Parsons to step down, also says he's a liar and a thief, and claims this isn't on Sony, but Bungie's leadership. It says Pete also supposedly bought a whopping 24 vehicles from a single auction site since the acquisition closed in July 2022, totaling $2,409,550 in cost, presumably part funded, but by what Liana refers to as, quote, the giant Sony payout.
It's
And
just
then, of course,
insane.
2 days later, lays off a ton of the staff. And I did hear that part too, where I think it was earlier this week, he asked some employees if they want to check out his 2 new cars that he got. So I knew about the 2 new cars. I learned about the 24 cars in what sounds like the last 24 months. It says since July 2022. That's a car a month.
Oh my God, that's insane. That's absurd. That's unnecessary. Stuff like that. He should not be making enough money to buy 24 classic cars and then however many you said in one auction, right?
But you know what? This is classic Western CEO behavior.
It 100% is. This is not something you see happening with Japanese studios ever.
Because in Japanese studios, the figureheads would take a pay cut and say,
"Yep,
hey,
and
pay me less. We keep the employees," and they literally do that. It's such a different way of life. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have a lot of respect for how they do things over there, and I wish we were more like that here.
Well, I'm looking. Oh, sorry.
He said he's like, I want to make that 24, so 200 of you just need to lose your job. I need a pay raise.
I mean, I just don't know where the mindset comes from. So I'm looking at a tweet on here. If you go on X and just type in Pete Parsons, the stuff that you see is unbelievable. But I've been seeing tweets constantly going off. People are very upset about the jobs lost, and I'm seeing a lot of people who lost their jobs, speak out. So there's this one, I think her name's Sam Bartley. She tweeted out, she said, "Coward, you did this, you chose this. I'm already listed as do not work with, and I don't care anymore. You lied to my face, straight to it. You also invited me to come see your new cars 2 days before you laid me off." And yeah, he blocked this woman. So I just think it's mind-blowing. Somebody made this meme of Pete laying down there with a bunch of cars. And then putting the Destiny, I put it there in the notes, but somebody, the Destiny wiki, like changed his stuff on there, turned him into a clown. It's absurd, man. I think it's crazy. I hope the people that lost their jobs are able to pick up and find other work, but it's like, who would want to stay in the games industry? That's where I'm at. Like, I don't know who would want to stay. And
pushing people out.
And people are going to college and paying thousands of dollars to do this, and it's just, and it's all for passion. Not, Mark, I think I told you last week, nobody really gets into video games as just like a career. Like, they're usually pretty passionate about games. Like, if they're getting into video games, you have to go out of your way to get into video games, realistically, unless it's in the marketing side or something like that. But if you're developing games, you have to care to some degree. So
you do. It's like being a teacher.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get rich being a teacher. And in some states it's worse than others. Like Arizona is one of the worst paying states.
Ohio's bad.
We're on the bottom 5 in the US, and you could make more money working at a lot of places. But instead, you want to become a teacher and you go to school and you pay all this money to the college only to become a teacher, and you're paying student debt for probably 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you don't get in it to become rich, just like video games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do it because it's passion.
Yeah.
And, making money is a benefit, essentially. But, I mean, as far as it's stuff with Bungie, and I think they've just fumbled the ball as far as Destiny and Destiny 2 are concerned. Do you think, now that the First Descendants it's been out for a few weeks now, you think a lot of people are going to transition from Destiny 2, which I think is just a whole mess, to the First Descendant?
I'm seeing that already based on like my little bit of time here this past week on Twitch. A lot of people streaming that game. A lot of
You can definitely
activity
tell
around it.
It's the same inspiration, but I mean, it's a new take. It's not a convoluted mess. It's another game made by a Korean developer. So if you want some titillation in your female characters, it's definitely you're able to buy into it. I mean, it's a free to play game, so you can hop in and play it. And if these cosmetics are there, they're expensive, but I mean, it's
I can't believe you just said
it's
that.
a free to play game, so it's. I thought it was a good
the way that you said it though. I've never heard anybody say that.
You go into that game and look at the costumes and tell me that's not a perfect explanation.
Yeah, I thought it was a
these
good
outfits.
descriptor.
No, it was pretty good. I just never heard anybody say that the titillation on those characters.
I've heard it. I haven't heard it in a long time though, so that was pretty funny.
Not a
It just
word that
came to
gets
my mind.
thrown around that much anymore.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's not.
Bringing it
Shit.
back.
I think we're all on the same page. This is absurd though, and it's unfortunate. I mean, truly unfortunate,
Yeah.
but it just keeps
I mean,
happening.
Yeah, it's just one thing after another with layoffs.
Yeah, but if you want to support an industry that at the very least has yet to get super corrupt, it's like, oh, it's a same type of game, but Bungie doesn't care about the players nor the developers. Why not go to a different game that at the very least doesn't have that baggage behind it if you actually have morals and you just don't care about the game itself.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, do you think he's gonna step down? Do you think they're gonna make him step down?
I don't think he's going to step down on his own. I think if he does, it's because he's forced to behind
Well,
the scenes.
I mean, yeah, investors, board, shares people. I mean, do you think that because the outcry for it is insane on Twitter, X, whatever, and we see people caving in. These companies cave into this They do all the time. You see it all the time.
They'd have to see their stock take negative hit for them to actually really realistically do anything.
I think they need to see more too. Like,
Yeah.
there's
It
got to
had to
be
be
something
prolonged.
more serious. I think there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it appear that he's completely tone deaf? Yeah. But there are a lot of the things that all the words people are using to describe him is pretty typical for a lot of CEOs.
Yeah.
Honestly, it is. So
Yeah. You're right.
unless he's doing something that is, really out of line, I guess you could say something that
Yeah. I get
people get canceled for. I hate using that word. I hate the whole cancel culture stuff.
We do too.
But you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
if it's something like that, then yeah, they'll get rid of him. Who was it over there at Activision? was the guy-
Oh yeah.
what's his name? I don't know why I can't think of
I
it.
know, we
just
forgot about him.
We just talked about it.
Kind of glad though.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
he was in the news nonstop at that point, and if I think if it reached maybe a scale like that,
Yeah. Yeah, it would have to be something more. And I'm sure there's possibly something there based on his buying habits.
Yeah. Were you talking about what's it, Bobby Kotick?
yeah,
Kotick or
Yeah.
whatever it is?
Yeah.
yep.
Well, we have some lighter news. We got new mask, same task. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was shocking. This happened the next day after the podcast last week. I was kind of mad because I was like, it's like a whole week
Just missed
away
it.
before you talk about it. Just
Oh,
barely
yeah.
missed it. No, this is unexpected, to say the least. Robert Downey Jr. talked about on Joe Rogan podcast how he was never going to be in any MCU stuff again. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that or anybody watching or listening, but and that happens quite frequently. Somebody says they're not doing something again, and that happens. So the money talks.
Is this whole
Money
like,
talks.
would the same thing happen with Wolverine essentially, or that's what they led us to believe?
Yeah. He said that too. He wasn't going to be playing Wolverine again. It was over, done.
Lo and behold.
Yeah. So it's interesting though that he's playing Doctor Doom. Now there's a lot of speculation around this, obviously. Could be anywhere. I don't keep up the comic books anymore. I used to be a weekly reader, but it's been since I think probably 2018 or so when I kind of gave up on it. There's too many books coming out every week, and it got convoluted. You had to read this 4-issue miniseries that connected to this main series that was going on, but there's also 16 other ones that you can read that are all attached to the same. Convoluted like the MCU has got. That's basically what it is.
They want you to buy everything.
Yeah.
To get the full story. You got to get all the DLC and all. That's basically what it is, but for books, for comic books, if you want the whole story, you got to get all this. We'll give you the foundation. But if you want to know what happens here, buy this, buy this, buy this. I mean, classic, man.
Mm-hmm. I remember there was one week when I was right at the end and I was about done reading. There were 12 books that came out that week that were all connected to the same event that was currently happening in the comic book. So if you wanted everything and you wanted to see all sides of what was going on with everybody, you had to pick up all those books, and it got to be too much. But anyway, that's besides the point. I don't know what this is coming from exactly. There's a bunch of stuff out there. Somebody was commenting at the beginning of the podcast too about it. But the one thing I saw was that there was one of the Earths in the multiverse where Tony Stark is Doctor Doom. Like they take the collars of Iron Man and mix it with Doctor Doom, and that's what he looked like. So.
Oh, yeah. I see that comment.
That's what I've heard. Some people said, unless this is going to make sense in story, why Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to cast him. Like the criticism of like, why cast him unless it makes sense in the story that his character is coming back in some way? Why not cast a new actor? Because it would be kind of weird if an Iron Man or the Ultimate for Tony Stark, like it doesn't in story make sense. Then why recast him to do somebody else in the MCU? It's kind of weird because you think of him as Iron Man.
Yeah, and then like traditionally, Doctor Doom is his ultimate foe, so like that's kind of how it always was. I don't know. Do you remember the Iron Man animated series, either of you, where he turned into Iron Man with his briefcase, dropped the briefcase on the ground, and it turned him into Iron Man? But it was always like Doctor Doom centric. So like I kind of grew up with because my dad was in the comic book stuff growing up, so it was always around me, and Doctor Doom was traditionally his ultimate foe. So I don't know. It's definitely interesting. I was like looking on here, and it says that there's apparently... Hold on, let me read this. If you let Doctor Doom simply be evil Tony Stark, that is somehow now going by Victor Von Doom, in another universe, that seems like a disservice to the original character. I don't know. So they're just pulling up an analysis of what they think.
Yeah, but I mean, isn't the MCU its own timeline? It's not really. It's doing its own thing outside of the comics.
It's its own thing.
What I was
yeah.
always led to believe. So you could do that. Take inspiration from something else, but you're not beholden to what the comics do.
No, 100%. They could just be doing their own thing, So I'm sure they took inspiration from some of this, but. It could just be like a new thing. It's definitely interesting. It's kind of
desperate, and they need to bring it back as an actor. So like, we're gonna find a way to bring him back.
That they had to be. And you know what sucks is, I guess it doesn't really suck, but this got announced like 2 days. I think it's 2 days exactly after Deadpool Wolverine came out. So immediately all the conversation around that movie halted, and I haven't heard one person talk about it since. I haven't seen anything personally.
Unfortunate.
I haven't seen one single thing since that, but that weekend, the 2 days before, that's like all I was seeing. So I don't know. I think that's kind of interesting. I was like, why are you overshadowing your new movie? Like, why didn't you just step this out at least a week later?
I guess if they wanted to do it at the San Diego Comic-Con, it had to be done now.
That's true.
Which is probably what they wanted to do. So it's just a bad time. I still think the timing's just terrible.
Yeah, it seems like kind of rough timing. Now it's like, you want the discussion to be around the new movie, but that movie's already sold gangbusters. I think it's the biggest opening weekend movie ever now. Yeah, to what I saw.
Missed it the opening weekend, which was unfortunate.
The biggest ever. That's crazy. So I mean, I don't know. That movie's good. Are you still planning on seeing it?
I'm trying to this week. I want to do this week. It's just I worked late most of the week for the most part. But no, I know I need to watch it. We were gonna try to do a movie on it, and I had to work
a video
this weekend.
Not a movie.
Yeah, it's one of those things we talked about before. Sometimes life just gets in the way of what you want to do sometimes.
Yeah. And then also the Fantastic Four First Steps, which is mostly also gotten overshadowed. But did you guys see that announcement as well?
Yeah, I
That
did.
I saw it a few hours ago.
Sounds like a reboot, right? First steps and trying to distance themselves from the other Fantastic Fours so they can actually make a new series and release multiple
a
movies.
good movie.
Yeah, exactly. And can't blame them.
Do you think they can do this one right? Because the last attempt, oh my god, that was worse than the other two movies.
Yeah.
Which were like kind of cheesy fun in my opinion. Like I remember liking them, and I didn't know that other people didn't like them. That's like when those two first came out, but they're not good, but they're kind of like cheesy fun movies. That last one that came out was god awful, absolute dumpster fire. So
apparently they just struggle with Fantastic Four when it comes to the big screen.
it sucks because I love the Fantastic Four. I think they're great. I always read the Thing comics and all the Fantastic Four stuff. It was one I was super attached to as a kid. I thought it was great, but I don't know what's gone wrong. So we've also got Suda51 and Shinji Mikami are interested in making a Killer 7 Complete Edition and sequel. Mark, you probably haven't played Killer 7, right? On the GameCube?
No, I haven't. It definitely wouldn't have been a game I'd have been allowed to play back then.
Have you played Killer 7, Steve?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I bought it when it came out.
What do you think?
It was part of the Capcom 5. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, I remember. Resident Evil.
That was a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah,
the 5 exclusives for GameCube.
That didn't end up being exclusive.
Nope, they sure didn't. It was what PN03.
Yep.
Resident Evil 4, Beautiful Joe.
Yep.
That was a good game.
Oh yeah.
Very good game.
Killer 7, and then one of them got canceled.
Yeah. That was the only ones in that were supposed to be a part of that 5. And then we quickly saw that Resident Evil wasn't exclusive, and then went on every platform ever.
They probably saw, like, we're not going to make any money if this stays on the GameCube.
Well, the GameCube didn't sell either, so I mean, it wasn't
probably part of the problem.
But it was so good.
So good. I may be my favorite console ever. It may very well be my favorite console ever.
It was great.
Yeah, I love that. I love that console. I also didn't know for like ever that the GameCube didn't sell, but it was popular around me. So like I just didn't know, but it's crazy.
We had it. A ton of us had it in high school.
Oh yeah.
We would play, obviously, Mario Kart and Smash Brothers all the time. We played a ton of Monkey Ball.
I did too.
Growing up.
Love it.
Yeah, great console.
Yeah, for sure. So
first one I camped out for.
Really?
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Say I've ever done that. By the time I actually had money, that just wasn't a thing anymore.
I camped out for my Series X, the pre-order day. There was me and one other person. Hold on, let me tell this story real quick. So there was me and one other person. This was to pre-order. That's it, not to get the console. And then the day of, to pick up the consoles, only 2 consoles came in, and there was a long line going all the way 4 stores down. 2 consoles, mine and one other guy's. The mean looks I got, the fact that one of the employees wanted to walk me out to my car, people were pissed.
Yeah.
People were angry because they waited in line for hours and hours and hours, but they didn't wait in line for the pre-order day. They waited in line to just come and get it. So
yeah, I've seen that happen. Since GameCube, I camped out for the Cube, the Wii, the DS, even the Wii U, and obviously I didn't need to, but we didn't know that when it came out.
Right. I was the
3DS.
one person for the Wii U at my GameStop. I was the only one there to pre-order it. So
Crazy.
A release day, nobody else there for it.
A lot of good times. I always meet a lot of great people camping out for systems.
Yep.
You're there all night. Like for the Wii, we got there Friday night, and the console, of course, came out Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
So we were there for a couple of days. We had a projector. We had a GameCube up on Best Buy's wall.
That's cool.
They gave us, like we had a really, really good setup, but made a lot of friends. It's always a good time.
I mean, I even did with the Series X. Like, there are people, I was out there talking to and stuff, and like there was the other person that came out. It was a family, so there was 4 of them, and I mean, that's cool. Those are really good memories that you'll never forget. That's the fun. That's the best part of it, right? I think that's better than getting the console itself.
They are. I met so many families that legit brought tents, and like the sleeping bags, like they are really truly going out in the woods camping, not like urban city camping. And it was just fun to meet the families too, because you could tell, especially with like some of the younger kids, that they were so excited to be doing this, and that their parents actually took them to camp out in line for a new system. I mean, you could really tell that it was a special moment for a lot of people, and like the hype's through the roof. Like, people are very excited, so it's always good time, a lot of good energy.
Yeah. Do you remember the people camping out for the Star Wars movies, the prequel trilogy? Do you remember that? Yeah. Oh my God, the lines on the news. So I'm like 45 minutes from like the city, and the lines that we would see on our local news, like I didn't get to do that. I was too young. I got to see the 3rd movie the day it came out, and then I saw all of them in the theater, but it wasn't like I would have been allowed to go wait in line type of deal. I wasn't old enough yet. I'm trying to think what movie I saw. I know for sure the first movie, I remember seeing the lines on the news in the city were absurd. And same thing, people with the tents, the whole night, bringing all their stuff out, lightsaber battles going on. I thought it was the coolest thing ever, man. It's just, I love that stuff, and that is something that it's gone forever, realistically. I mean, people are just buying online.
I know, and the midnight launches. I mean,
I've gone to a few in the past.
None here. I've gone to Arizona.
The midnight launches are. The GameStop will call and ask me, hey, would you like to pick this up at 9 o'clock? We're doing a release party, and their release party is just people coming in there to get the game at 9 o'clock the night before. And they do that for like the bigger stuff. They'll call me. They've done it quite a few times, and I've gone and done that. But yeah, the midnight launch stuff is gone. The last thing I remember doing that for was Call of Duty World War II, I think, is the last one that I remember doing that for. So it's been a while. I miss those
times.
Very good times.
The end of an era.
Yeah, that era is over because
I was too young.
Digital's taken over.
Yeah. It definitely has. So we've also got this one kind of in one way sort of makes me mad, but the PSVR 2 sales. So I'm sure you guys have seen the tweets and stuff going out all week. Mark, we were literally talking about this last week.
Yeah.
Talking about the PSVR 2, and then right after that, I started sending you. I was like, "Hey, look, this is $350 right here, $400 for the bundled version." And, it's like quite a bit off because it's $549 MSRP for the standard, and then $600 for the bundled version. So that's a lot of money off. And this reminds me of when they cut the price on the 3DS. You remember that?
Yeah, because I bought it
ambassador program or whatever. You got all the
ambassador games.
Yeah, those 3DSs with those games on are worth a good bit of money. I did that too. But yeah, I think this is a great thing for this, but I still think it's kind of dead in the water. What irritates me is that look what happened when they cut the price and sold it for a decent price, because you have to either, at least now, you have to either buy a PS5, $500 right there, to be able to even play this unit that costs another $550. So you're $1,000, and not even including tax, well over $1,000, or a PC. So now you still have to have another thing to play this. It's not a wireless unit. So it's a lot of money to get into this. Do I love mine? I love it. It's great. It's powerful. There's no games. That's the problem, right? So it's going to be a Vita all over again, where third-party developers are keeping it alive. Indies are keeping it alive. You saw limited run games came out of the Vita. I bought their first game when it went up for pre-order. Yeah. So I don't know. Do you think this will change anything for the PSVR 2 as far as PlayStation first party, any of that. Yeah.
No, unfortunately, because I own a PSVR 2. I bought it day one. And no, I don't think it's going to change anything. I think it's too late as well. I really do. I mean, PS5 came out in 2020.
20, yep.
We're 4 years in. We're talking about the PS5 Pro. If you started developing a game today, how many years is it going to take?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What I do think, and I kind of thought about this earlier, is that, as you guys know, the PSVR 2 PC adapter is supposed to come out on the 7th.
Yep.
And still nobody's selling it, which is wild, but I've looked everywhere. Everyone else has.
Isn't it only being sold
mum.
on the PlayStation Store? Or am I?
No, well, it is on there. It's supposed to be. It's not yet.
Yeah.
There's not even a placeholder listing, but the blog says that you can buy it PlayStation Direct and select retailers.
Okay.
It doesn't say which ones they are. The only one who has a placeholder up is GameStop. It says coming soon. Meanwhile, GameStop Canada is already selling it, and it's in people's hands. So it's really weird.
I saw a video on it already.
I did too. Yeah. We probably saw the same one.
Yeah.
Here's what I think, guys. So I'm going to get the PC VR adapter because I do want to obviously play games, pick up games on Steam. There's a lot of great games you can get for a great deal. But as we know, PSVR 2 is going to be missing a lot of its key features, like headband vibration, eye tracking, adaptive triggers, haptic feedback, and they're saying HDR. But some games will have HDR, but the messaging there is a little weird too. So what I could see happening is if it sells enough, then you take these PC VR games that are already out, add those features, release it on PSVR 2. That's how the PSVR 2 can get more games. If all you got to do, it would be like taking a PS4 game and releasing it on PS5 and taking advantage of the DualSense controller.
Yeah.
I look at it that way. And that's easy money for the developer. So depending on how hard it is, which I don't think it would be that hard, I think that's how the PSVR 2 gets more games. I don't think Sony is going to support it. I really don't.
Yeah.
It is what it is, right? We got some good games. We got the Resident Evil games. We got Gran Turismo, which is so cool.
That's the best VR game. I said that's the best experience. It's not even, It's
so cool. I had my brother come over and play it, and he was just like, "Oh my god!"
Did you get the bundled version too with Call of the Mountain?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's that great. It's certainly not a VR headset seller. It's fine. It's fine, but it's not. It feels like a tech demo.
It does, and Gran Turismo to me is the flagship like VR experience, right? It's so cool, but I don't know if like Horizon, I think they had the right idea in mind for a console, or not a console, but an extremely expensive accessory to be the pack-in title versus a racing game, which doesn't appeal to everybody, no matter how great of a reputation the Gran Turismo series has.
Yeah.
So I see what they tried to do there, but it sounds like you guys are in agreement too that Gran Turismo 7 is the best experience, and Resident Evil is a damn good one too, but it wasn't there at launch.
Yeah. Yeah, 100% Gran Turismo. I told Mark that last week. That's still the best thing on it. And then, Resident Evil is, good Lord, man, so immersive with that. It's an experience. It's like truly an experience that even like non-horror fans should at least check out. But yeah, I love that. I don't think it's going to change any first party stuff either. Just like the Vita, I feel like it's kind of dead in the water for them. And when they abandon something, they abandon it completely. Like nothing else for it. We're done.
Yeah,
it's too late.
I kind of have more of a pessimistic view on this. It seems like we're done with it. We're cutting it, probably losing money in the process, and we're just trying to recoup some of our losses as we empty out our inventory.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
This is what it feels like to me, because I mean, you can't they can't cut $200 off and tell me that they're not losing money on these sales.
If I remember seeing correctly, like they're not making much money from these headsets to begin with.
Yeah.
If I remember seeing correctly, like it's something like $50 or something. So they're really not making money off the headsets like that. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. We'll definitely be staying tuned to it, see if anything happens, but I don't think it's going to.
I think this is just them just emptying the inventory, because it's obviously at the 550, it's not selling. I think there's just better VR headsets out there if you're going to get into it.
Yeah, and I don't think we're gonna get a VR3.
No, I don't see it happening. No.
I don't see that happening with the PS6. I really don't. I think the trust is gone. It's gone for me as far as this is concerned, because I don't think they would support it. I've already seen it happen twice, and we've seen it happen also with Vita.
Yep.
But like you guys said, I still appreciate what it does have to offer.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent headset. It's a great headset, but that's not the problem. You know, the hardware is not the problem.
I just think that I just want to say, I just think the VR market is on the PC, and it's too expensive to add on for those who are going to be into consoles.
MetaQuest has the market by the, you know.
Yeah, like the market's dominated in one area. It's kind of like handheld, like Sony or Microsoft could dabble into it, but it's really hard to break into a market, kind of like with Nintendo, who's just dominated handhelds for the better part of, 30, 40 years at this point?
Yeah,
35
100%.
years.
Yeah, like it's like they've been the backbone for it. So
yeah.
And then I wanted to shout out that Johnny is in here and popped in the chat. So just want to say hello to you. Wasn't ignoring the chat there. Just did not see that we had a bunch flood in. So he was mentioning about the new Dragon Ball game. I assume he's talking about Sparking Zero. And then what else we got? Oh, I wanted to mention before the last topic, the romhacking.net stuff, since you sent that to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm still seeing stuff about it. But yeah, they're ceasing operation. This says the website has been a nexus for fan translation and ROM hacking for many years. So that was actually the very first thing I ever went to this website for, was for Phantasy Star. Oh, what's the
online?
No, it was an early game that never came out over here.
Okay.
I can't even remember. It was, I think, it was the Game Gear game. Yeah. So I went to that website for fan translation. There's a few of them out there. The website definitely was like a great source for getting ROMs or fan translations. Like I went there for many Dragon Ball games on the Famicom. I went there for those. There was a bunch, especially RPGs, because there was so much that didn't come out here. And it was such a great source for so many years for that. And it's truly a bummer, but it does look like, I guess on the positive side, that everything from the website is going over to archive.org, which is good because that's where I get most of my stuff these days. It's just a safe, easy option. Everything's compiled together. But what do you think about this, Steve?
Well, yeah, I think it's unfortunate because, to my knowledge, they didn't house ROMs on the site as far as like you can actually download ROMs here. Like you had to have the ROM from somewhere else.
I don't remember. I could be misremembering about the actual ROMs part. Was it like linked to somewhere else for the ROMs, or like?
No, like most of the games on there, you're either downloading translation patches.
Oh yeah, the patches and stuff. Yeah.
Or you're downloading hacks, right?
Yeah.
And you have to use like Lunar IPS or something to patch the ROM. So you have to supply the ROM. They supply the hack, which is the patch.
Right.
And dude, I've played so many awesome ROM hacks, because it's like I own the game.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't see any problem with it. I own The Legend of Zelda on NES, and if I want to download the Legend of Zelda Outlands ROM hack.
What a ROM hack too. That's classic.
Right.
That's a classic one.
It's so good, and so I found so many games like for the NES, for Super Nintendo, even for 64.
Hmm.
I have the Mother 3 fan translation, of course, Earthbound 3.
Oh yeah, I got that on a cart too.
I do too. I have the
Yeah,
cartridge.
yeah.
Uh, so it's stuff like that. That these are games that they're either fan
Hmm.
creations, and they put a lot of heart into these
They
projects,
do.
right? Because to my knowledge, they're not getting paid for it, right?
I don't think
Is
so.
it?
I've never heard of
Yeah,
that. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's a way to monetize that now with like Patreon, but the classic
sure.
stuff, like the old stuff, no.
Yeah, like if you release your ROM hack physically, and I've bought some physical ones,
Me
I'm
too.
sure that they get a cut from it. But as far as this website's concerned, these are like passion projects, and it's just something really cool
Hmm.
that has been out there for the gaming community to consume if they want to. And especially like when we have kind of dry periods in gaming, when there's like just not a lot of stuff going on, not a lot of games going on.
Yeah.
And I go over to romhacking.net and I just see like a list of all these new like different games that have ROM hacks now, and I'm clicking, looking at the screenshots, reading the user reviews. It's like, oh, like 20 people recommended this game.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shoot, like I need to see what this is about. That sort of discovery,
Yeah.
that'll be gone now. Even though it'll be on the Internet Archive, the community aspect will be
Yep.
gone, which is unfortunate. And my only hope is, and they even said this in their tweet or in their message that they
Yeah.
put out, their last message, that maybe somebody else will grab all the stuff we're putting on to the Internet Archive and take the reins.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll create their own. Like we're done. We've done everything we wanted to do. We've grown the ROM hacking scene by having this website. It grew way bigger than we ever thought it would. And people know about ROM hacking now.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. And I thought their message was pretty heartfelt, actually. I was like, wow, that's
It
good.
really
Like,
is.
I would
Yeah.
agree with you guys. You really did grow it.
Yeah, they put out a long message too, so if you want to check it out, you can find it on X and some other places. But yeah, it put out a real long message. It was very, very heartfelt. This was definitely a passion project. I mean, obviously they kept it around for so long. They might even, maybe they're just not into video games anymore too, and where they just need to not have this on their back anymore, because stuff like this can. It can turn into like a monkey on your back when it gets bigger than you think, and definitely a lot of people appreciate the time that went into this. So I think, it's bound to happen eventually. Everything good comes to an end.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, always does.
Unfortunately.
yeah. So for our last thing, this was something that just happened basically a few hours ago. GameStop shut down Game Informer. What do you guys think about this for us? Anything?
I don't know anybody that actually, because I guess they have their physical and the website. I was surprised they published their physical magazine for as long as they did.
Yeah.
But I mean, this doesn't surprise me. It probably wasn't making money, if potentially losing them. And then obviously, GameStop's financially been struggling for years at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised it was around as long as it was, personally. I mean,
I would say that, yeah, I'm surprised as well, like that it's been around this long. I think the presence is greater on GameInformer.com, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's been a mainstay, and from what I've gathered, right, is that it's all shut down.
Yeah, all of it, from what I understand as well.
Like, I went to the website. If you go to it, it literally says the final level, farewell from Game Informer.
Yeah, it's done.
all their articles are gone now.
Yeah, they were a running, functioning website like IGN, like GameSpot.
I found a lot of news there, legitimately. Like, it would pop up, and if it was the related one, I don't really preference one to the other. I just click whatever comes up first or looks, like it might be a full article. So I used it for this podcast all the time.
Game Informer was like obviously it was very much GameStop owned them, but they were really tied to them. I think through GameStop's website as well.
Yeah.
It would say like if it got a Game Informer editor's choice, like they really tried to, I think, implement the two together, and I think that's a great idea in theory, but clearly it didn't work. They tried to use the magazines, of course, to sell the memberships at GameStop. And look, man, no kid cares about a magazine.
No, they don't.
No.
Kids, that's not how they get their news. And even people like us that are this age, if we still read magazines, it's fine. It's just considered super old school because you're reading news from like
Old
6
news.
or 7 weeks ago.
News
most
that's
likely.
older than it gets older than it ever has, and there's something in 5 minutes, that
It's
pops
too
up.
fast.
Yeah,
Too
like
fast.
the nostalgia of magazines isn't even there. Like I have a bunch of Nintendo Powers, right, from back in the day, like from
Yeah, I gotta say,
from
I
the
have a
late 80s,
lot of
early
nostalgia for the Nintendo Power.
so do I. And for me, that's where my nostalgia's at for magazines.
Yeah.
But, I don't have nostalgia for Game Informer. If it was Game Pro or
Yeah.
like EGM,
Yes.
Electronic Game
I got
Monthly,
both
yeah.
subscriptions for both of those too.
Yeah, I would, but I just don't. And it's anytime this happens, it sucks because I'm sure there's a lot of talented people still working there.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
I think it's just a sign of the time, guys.
Yeah.
I think so too.
I mean, a lot of these news, gaming not specific, but a lot of media's been struggling lately.
Yes.
Some of it I don't want to go to. Some of it I think it's their own fault.
I do too.
With how they had some personalities,
I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking
It's
about.
the whole,
We're all on the same page
type thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as the magazine, I think it's just it's going away. I think Nintendo Power did well for so long because it wasn't just news; it was game specific. You'd also find game guides, maybe a short little, a comic or like a manga type thing in there that they would sell as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's just a mixture of GameStop financially not being the best, and then a lot of journalist websites, game media's websites just don't have the traffic that they used to. Especially when you have places like YouTube and X/Twitter, where a lot of people go for news and stuff like that. It's where people go for information is changing with the times. With the access to the internet and other platforms, it's just like there's better places I can go to get my news.
Right. The young generation doesn't want to look at screenshots. They don't want to read. They don't want to read articles. They want to see gameplay footage and they want to play demos.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. Like they have zero interest in this stuff. If we're being honest, like they do not care whatsoever about this Game Informer magazine, and the only ones who would is us the old heads.
Yeah.
Is the older people, and we don't really either.
I don't
definitely dropped off.
I don't have nostalgia for Game Informer. I got it in the early days, I guess. But I just don't have nostalgia. You said Game Pro and EGM. Those two and Nintendo Power were my 3 subscriptions that I got.
Same here.
From, God, hold on. I don't know why I just forgot about it. From the year 2000 until the very last issue, I had a consistent Nintendo Power subscription. And then the other 2, it would be kind of off and on with those. I'd get subscriptions here or there. My grandma would get me one that year or something like that. Or, whatever the situation might be. But I just don't have nostalgia for Game Informer like that. But hopefully, people that... I don't know how many people lost their jobs, but hopefully, they find new work.
I
and
don't
stuff.
either. I feel like a lot of people did, though, on the website.
They had to.
Probably,
I feel like it was probably a pretty big number that all lost their jobs at once. I haven't heard anybody speak out about this yet, but they might not be able to, for all I know. Maybe there's I don't know, something.
Yeah, I mean, just happened, so it might take time for people to actually have a proper reaction or to digest it. Who knows when the actual employees found out? Did they find out a week ago, or they've just found out, Oh yeah, by
24 hours
you're
ago.
you don't have a job anymore, type thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that is all the news that we got for this week. Yeah. So we appreciate having you on, Steve. Hopefully you had a good time.
I did. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It was great conversation today.
Yeah, it definitely went a little bit longer than expected with you on here, so I apologize about that. Hopefully you didn't get bored or anything.
That always happens.
And I apologize to the viewers if I spoke too much.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I mean,
You were
just
great.
here talking about video games, fun hobby that we all enjoy. So hopefully everybody has a good time.
Yeah.
Us and
sure.
viewers as well.
And then Johnny
Had a
said
great time.
we are all old. So thanks. All right.
Yep.
Well, we appreciate everybody watching, listening. If you're listening on the audio, definitely appreciate it. We charted for some reason on a couple of different apps last week, so that was pretty cool. Definitely very neat. But if you are listening on the audio, be sure to give a follow or rate, depending on the app that you're using. Some of them allow both, some of them allow none. So wherever you're listening, let us know, comment, head over to the YouTube, check out the video. It's fun. You might have a good time. And we'll see you all later.